Mississippi is a land of winding rivers and misty swamps, a place where the water seems alive, carrying centuries of secrets, tragedies, and disappearances. Some rivers are not just reversa, they are gateways to the unknown, haunted by restless spirits and tragic souls who were never seen again. Tonight, we explore 25 of Mississippi's most haunted rivers, where people vanish without a trace, and the waters still whisper their fates. From phantoms drifting along the banks to unexplained lights on foggy nights, these rivers hide stories that chill the blood and test the courage of anyone daring to walk their shores. The Pearl River in central Mississippi winds quietly through dense forests and marshlands, its dark waters reflecting the towering trees and the ever-present mist that clings to the riverbanks. By day, the river appears calm and unassuming, offering anglers and hikers a peaceful escape from the world. Sunlight sparkles on the water, and the gentle murmur of the current creates a sense of serenity. Yet the tranquility of the Pearl River is deceptive. Over the decades, it has been the site of numerous sudden disappearances, leaving locals and visitors with stories of mystery, fear, and lingering spirits that continue to haunt the Rivera's edge. The river's reputation for vanishing people began decades ago. Historical records are fragmented, but local lore is full of accounts of fishermen, hikers, and even entire families who ventured near the river and were never seen again. Some vanished while walking along the banks, others while crossing in boats or swimming in shallow waters. These disappearances have created a sense of foreboding that clings to the river even on the brightest of days, an invisible weight of loss and unanswered questions. Witnesses describe moments of sudden unease, as though the river itself is aware of their presence and watching, waiting. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves ghostly figures walking along the riverbanks. Visitors often describe seeing pale silhouettes moving silently through the mist, sometimes appearing to watch them from the trees or along the water's edge. These figures are often vaguely human in shape, but seem to glide rather than walk, their movements fluid and unnatural. One man fishing alone reported glimpsing a shadowy figure in the distance, standing motionless along the riverbank. When he blinked or turned his head to focus, the figure had vanished, leaving only the gentle ripple of water behind. Others have described seeing multiple figures, sometimes grouped together, as if replaying moments. Cold, invisible hands are another haunting feature of the Pearl River. Visitors frequently report a sudden, chilling sensation, as if someone or something is grasping their wrists or ankles, tugging at them. Hikers and nighttime travelers along the banks have described being pulled briefly, startled, or losing their footing as if an unseen force is trying to drag them into the water. A young woman walking near the shore recounted feeling a cold grip around her ankle, pulling her toward the river despite her efforts to resist. When she looked, the bank was empty, the current untouched, but the sensation lingered, leaving her shaken and reluctant to continue along the path. Boats appearing and disappearing on foggy nights add another layer of mystery. Locals and visitors have reported seeing small rowboats or canoes gliding across the river, only to vanish when approached. One couple boating during a dense fog recounted seeing a lone vessel floating silently upstream. As they rowed closer, the boat vanished, leaving no trace on the water. These spectral vessels are often tied to the Rivera's disappearances, with some speculating that they are remnants of the souls of those lost, trapped between the world of the living and the depths of the Pearl River. Many who encounter these phenomena describe a combination of visual, tactile, and auditory experiences. The river seems to shift around them, the mist thickening unnaturally, footsteps echoing where no one walks, and a sudden chill settling over the body. Some report faint whispers calling their names, disembodied voices rising from the water. Shadows flit at the edge of vision, and the feeling of being watched intensifies. As visitors approach the most secluded bends of the river, some report faint whispers calling their names, disembodied voices rising from the water or rustling through the trees. Shadows flit at the edge of vision, and the feeling of being watched intensifies as visitors approach the most secluded bends of the river. Some report faint whispers calling their names, disembodied voices rising from the water or rustling through the trees. The effect is disorienting, leaving a lasting impression that the Pearl River is alive with the memories of those who vanished within its waters. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to the Pearl River because of its reputation and the consistency of reports. Audio recordings capture faint splashes, whispers, and the distant echo of voices over the water. Thermal imaging often detects pockets of cold air rising from the riverbanks, corresponding with areas where figures have been reported. Long exposure photography has revealed indistinct forms gliding above the water or among the trees, suggesting the presence of spirits. Investigators theorize that the violent and sudden deaths associated with the river, combined with the emotional energy of those left behind, may have created a concentrated spiritual imprint, producing recurring manifestations for those who venture near the banks. Local lore reinforces the river's mystique. Residents warn travelers to exercise caution, particularly at night, noting that the river is more than water, and Teresa, it is a place where the boundary between the living and the dead feels thin. Stories of ghostly figures, cold hands, and disappearing boats are shared widely, passed down through generations, shaping a collective understanding of the river as a site of both beauty and danger. Despite its eerie reputation, the Pearl River continues to draw visitors. Fishermen, hikers, thrill-seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts are drawn to its waters, hoping to witness the unexplained or simply experience the haunting ambience. Many leave with stories of ghostly figures gliding along the banks, hands that seem to reach out from the mist, and boats that vanish as mysteriously as they appear. The Pearl River is more than a natural waterway. It is a place where tragedy lingers, where sudden disappearances have left echoes that continue to ripple across time. Those who venture near the river at night do so with a heightened awareness that some waters carry not just reflection, but the restless presence of souls forever bound to the Pearl River, haunting its shores and reminding all who pass that some disappearances are never truly resolved. The Yazoo River in Greenwood winds quietly through the lowlands, its dark, slow-moving waters reflecting the dense cypress trees and Spanish moss that line its banks. By day, the river appears serene, a place where fishermen cast lines and herons stalk the shallows. But locals have long whispered of a presence that turns the calm river into a place of terror at night. Tales speak of a shadowy woman dressed in white, appearing along the riverbanks, luring unsuspecting travelers to the water, where they vanish without a trace. These stories have persisted for generations, creating a chilling reputation for the Yazoo that has drawn both wary locals and curious thrill-seekers to its banks. Witnesses describe seeing the woman along the water's edge, sometimes at dusk, sometimes deep into the night. She is tall and pale, her flowing white dress almost luminous against the darkness of the trees. Some say her face is hidden beneath a veil of hair or shadow, leaving only her haunting figure visible. Travelers recount a compulsion to approach her, a subtle pull that draws them toward the river. Those who attempt to reach her often report a sudden sense of disorientation, the ground seeming to shift, the river's edge receding or warping, as if reality itself is bending around her presence. And just as they near the water, she vanishes, leaving behind only the faint echo of footsteps in the mud or the chilling sensation that someone or something has passed by. The river itself seems alive with echoes of the missing. Fishermen on calm nights report hearing phantom splashes in waters that are otherwise still. Sometimes these splashes appear near the boat, startling even experienced anglers who swear the surface was undisturbed moments before. Others describe seeing ripples moving outward from a point in the river where no fish or wildlife could have caused them. Some witnesses hear faint voices carried on the river breeze, desperate cries for help that vanish when they call out in response. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates an unnerving impression that the river holds some memories, or the presence of those lost to it. The woman in white is said to be a spirit of tragedy, a victim of drowning or betrayal, who now lingers along the Yazoo to exact a similar fate on anyone who crosses her path. while others claim she was a traveler swept away by the current during a storm. Some versions of the story suggest she was a bride abandoned at the river, drowned in despair on her wedding day, while others claim she was a traveler swept away by the current during a storm. Generations of Greenwood residents have passed down warnings to avoid the river at night, cautioning that those who ignore her lure may never return. Paranormal investigators drawn to the Yazoo River have documented strange phenomena consistent with the local legends. EMF readings spike near the riverbanks, where witnesses report seeing the woman in white. Thermal cameras sometimes reveal faint human-shaped heat signatures standing near the water, only to vanish when approached. Audio recordings frequently capture distant splashing, faint crying, and whispered pleas for help, though no physical source can be found. One investigator described floating along the river in a canoe when he felt a sudden cold rush across the bow. Looking up, he thought he saw a figure in white standing at the water's edge, only for it to dissolve into the night as he blinked. His recordings later confirmed a series of faint splashes and muffled voices that seemed to echo from the river itself. Visitors report powerful physical and emotional reactions when encountering a haunting. Many describe a chill that rises along the spine, a tightening in the chest, or an overwhelming sense of dread that compels them to leave. Some recount feeling an invisible pull toward the river, as if unseen hands are guiding them toward the water. Others note a sensation of being watched, the hair on their arms standing on end, as if unseen eyes are tracking their every move. These responses reinforce the legend that the river is not just haunted, but actively dangerous, exerting influence over those who venture too close after dark. The village elder, a wise and aged man, speaks of the river's dark history. Locals share their terrifying encounters with the river's malevolent force. The camera pans over the river, capturing the eerie, moonlit atmosphere. The river's power is revealed in a stunning display of supernatural force. The villagers flee in terror as the river's malevolent force closes in. The camera lingers on a lone figure, standing at the river's edge. The river's dark power draws the figure closer, as if beckoning them into its depths. The figure reaches out a hand, as if to touch the water. The river's dark power surges forward, as if to claim the figure as its own. Even in daylight, subtle signs of the haunting are reported. Fishermen sometimes see movement along the banks, shadows flitting between trees, or the glimmer of white fabric among rietza, though closer inspection reveals nothing. The river occasionally produces splashes or ripples that have no obvious explanation, and some witnesses report the faint scent of cold water mixed with a metallic tang of something long lost beneath the surface. Though less dramatic than nighttime encounters, these subtle signs serve as reminders that the Rivera's spectral presence never fully dissipates. The Yazoo River is more than a flowing body of water. It is a locus of mystery, tragedy, and lingering energy. The woman in white, phantom splashes, and desperate cries combine to create an atmosphere charged with danger and sorrow. Those who venture near the river at night confront a place where the past and present collide, and where the echoes of tragedy remain vividly alive. For those who leave its banks unharmed, the memory lingers, a haunting reminder that some spirits are drawn to living, and some waters never release the dead. The Big Black River, winding through the Vicksburg area, has long been a source of both sustenance and mystery. Its dark waters reflect the dense cypress trees that line its banks, and at night, the river can appear almost otherworldly, silent and deep, yet hiding centuries of history beneath its surface. Native American legends speak of the river as a place of spirits and omens, a waterway that holds the memories of those who lived along its shores and the secrets of ancient ceremonies. Colonial tragedies further cloud its reputation. As early settlers and explorers met untimely ends in these waters, their lives claimed by sudden floods, treacherous currents, or conflicts with the river itself. Over time, the Big Black River earned a reputation as a place to be respected, a dark corridor where the living and the supernatural sometimes intersect. Visitors walking along the banks or venturing near the river at night often report an unnerving feeling of being watched. The air grows heavier, and a subtle, almost imperceptible vibration seems to ripple through the ground beneath their feet. Many describe a sense of isolation that is far more intense than natural darkness alone could explain. It is as if the river itself acknowledges those who tread near its edges, reminding them that these waters have long carried both life and death. Travelers moving alone report heightened anxiety, a caution rooted in generations of stories warning that the river claims those who wander without company after sunset. One of the most striking phenomena associated with the Big Black River is the appearance of floating lanterns along its surface. Witnesses describe small, glowing orbs of light drifting silently across the water, their warm glow reflecting in the ripples. At first, the lanterns appear distant and tangible, often moving against the current in ways that seem deliberate. When approached, however, they vanish without a trace, leaving only the dark, undisturbed water behind. Some say these lanterns are the spirits of those lost to the river, attempting to guide or warn travelers. Others interpret them as manifestations of the Rivera's ancient magic, lingering echoes of ceremonies performed by Native Americans along its banks centuries ago. The waters themselves have a reputation for defying expectations. Many visitors report that, at times, the current seems to flow in reverse or shift unnaturally. Ripples appear against the natural direction of the river, as though some hidden force beneath the surface is at work. Those who pause at the water's edge often hear the subtle gurgling of the river, more pronounced than usual, almost like whispers carried just beneath the surface. Some claim to have seen figures or shadows moving beneath the water, glimpses of people who once walked along the banks, now trapped between worlds. The sensation is disorienting, creating an awareness that the river does not adhere entirely to the rules of the natural world. Sounds are a key part of the haunting atmosphere. Travelers report hearing faint footsteps on the muddy banks, even when the area is empty, and low, mournful cries that seem to float up from the water itself. These sounds are inconsistent, sometimes distant, other times startlingly close. Yet they always evoke a sense of caution. Wind and water combine in ways that amplify these noises, creating a chorus of natural and supernatural elements that make any nighttime visit tense and unsettling. The echoes of past tragedies seem to linger in the very air around the river, blending with the sound of flowing water and rustling trees. Local legends emphasize the danger of walking alone near the Big Black River after dark. Stories passed down through generations speak of settlers who vanished without a trace, travelers who ignored warnings, and Native Americans who performed rituals to appease spirits or ensure safe passage. Some say the river itself is sentient, an entity capable of influencing the living world. Others believe the spirits bound to the river are protective, ensuring that those who approach do so with respect and caution. Regardless of interpretation, the warnings persist, supported by consistent reports of unexplained lights, sounds, and movements. Even during the day, the river retains an air of mystery. Its surface is darker than most surrounding waterways, reflecting shadows of trees and clouds in ways that make the water seem almost black. Wildlife behaves differently along its banks, moving silently and avoiding human contact in ways that some attribute to the lingering presence of spirits. Canoeists and fishermen speak of moments when a river appears to shift subtly beneath them, currents changing direction unexpectedly, or objects floating along the surface in patterns that defy explanation. Those who visit the Big Black River with the intent of capturing evidence of the unexplained often return with photographs showing faint orbs of light or distorted reflections in the water. Audio recordings sometimes capture low moaning or whispering, and video equipment occasionally picks up brief flashes of movement or glowing figures that vanish when reviewed more closely. Even skeptical observers often leave with an enduring impression of the Rivera's power and its connection to forces beyond the ordinary. The Big Black River is more than a waterway. It is a living testament to history, tragedy, and enduring mystery. The floating lanterns, rippling currents, and unseen presences are reminders that the river has witnessed countless events, both natural and human. and that some memories remain imprinted in its waters. Travelers are advised to approach with caution, to respect its history, and to avoid venturing alone after dark. For those who ignore its reputation may find themselves at the mercy of the unseen. The river is a place where the past persists, where Native American legends and colonial tragedies converge, and where every ripple, every light, and every whisper carries the weight of centuries. The Tallahatchie River winds through Greenwood and the surrounding countryside, its waters dark and slow-moving, bordered by thick forests and marshlands that have witnessed centuries of history. Fishermen cast lines, and wildlife thrives in the surrounding wetlands. Yet beneath this peaceful exterior lies a history steeped in tragedy, and locals know that the Tallahatchie carries echoes of events long past. From the time of the Civil War, to countless drownings and unexplained deaths along its shores, the river is said to be haunted, its quiet waters masking phenomena that leave visitors unsettled and awed. The haunting of the Tallahatchie River is tied to multiple layers of history. During the Civil War, soldiers were stationed along its banks, some dying from battle injuries, disease, or accidents while crossing the river. Their presence, coupled with the many who drowned over the decades, has created a reputation for unexplained occurrences. Visitors describe the river as a place where the past lingers, where sounds, sights, and sensations seem to emerge in the mist, drawing attention to Rivera's dark legacy. Many report experiences that are both eerie and inexplicable, suggesting that the spirits of those lost still move through the waters and along the riverbanks. Phantom rowing sounds are among the most commonly reported phenomena. Visitors walking along the river in the early morning or late at night often hear the unmistakable rhythm of oars dipping into water, accompanied by the creak of wooden boats gliding across the surface. These sounds are frequently reported even when no boat is visible, and they appear to move across the river as if driven by unseen hands. One man camping near the shore recounted waking to the sound of oars striking water in steady, deliberate strokes. When he peered into the darkness, no boat was visible, yet the sounds continued for several minutes, before fading into silence, leaving him with an unsettling awareness that the river had been occupied by unseen rowers. Boats moving without a crew are another hallmark of the Tallahatchie's hauntings. Locals and visitors have reported small rowboats or canoes drifting or even accelerating along the river, as if piloted by invisible hands. One couple fishing at dusk watched a boat suddenly glide past them, its oars rising and falling in rhythm though no one was inside. Attempts to approach the vessel were futile. By the time they neared, it had vanished into the evening fog. Such experiences reinforce the sense that the river is alive with memories and spirits, with the movements of the vessel serving as spectral reenactments of lives and labor lost of the waters. The river is also known for an unusual and chilling fog that appears without warning. Visitors frequently describe thick, low-lying mist rolling across the water and swallowing entire sections of the riverbank. This fog often appears silently, obscuring paths and trees, and it carries with a sense of otherworldliness. Witnesses report that sounds are muted within the fog, and shippies, sometimes human, sometimes indistinct, seem to move just beyond visibility. One woman walking along a path near the river described stepping into the fog and feeling a sudden chill, the sound of distant voices rising above the water. By the time she emerged, the fog had lifted, leaving her shaken, and aware that she had walked through a space where the living and the dead seemed to intersect. Many visitors also describe a combination of auditory, visual, and physical sensations along the river. Shadows appear to flit across the water. Disembodied voices echo through the trees, and sudden cold drafts sweep the banks even on warm nights. Some report a feeling of being watched, or the subtle sensation of a hand brushing against them as they move along the shoreline. The river itself seems to exert a presence, an almost sentient awareness of those who traverse it, and the haunting is often described as both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder of the lives and events the river has carried through time. Paranormal investigators have explored the Tallahatchie River extensively. Audio recordings capture the sound of oars, distant voices, and faint splashing when no human activity is present. Thermal imaging detects pockets of sudden cold along the banks and in the water, often corresponding to locations where phantom rowing or ghostly shapes are reported. Long exposure photography has revealed blurred forms drifting across the river and shadowy figures along the fog-covered banks. Experts theorize that the combination of violent deaths, lost lives, and the intense emotional energy tied to the river may have left residual impressions, creating a concentrated spiritual presence. Local lore has kept the Rivera's reputation alive through generations. Residents warn travelers to respect the water, especially after dark or during dense fog. Stories of phantom rowing, drifting boats, and chilling fog are shared freely, and those who venture near the river often report experiences that reinforce the haunting. The Tallahatchie is more than a waterway. It is a living repository of memory and tragedy, where echoes of the past continue to resonate across time. Despite its eerie reputation, the river continues to draw fishermen, hikers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts. Many leave with vivid accounts of ghostly boats, sounds of oars slicing through water, the sudden rise of mist, and the lingering feeling of unseen watchers. The Tallahatchie River is more than a stretch of water winding through Greenwood and the surrounding countryside. It is a place where history, tragedy, and lingering spirits converge, where phantom rowing sounds, drifting boats, and swallowing fog serve as constant reminders that some rivers never forget those who are lost to their depths. The Wolf River in northern Mississippi flows quietly through thick forests and low-lying wetlands, its dark waters winding between cypress knees and moss-draped trees. By day, the river appears calm and picturesque, with fishermen casting lines on the banks and kayakers drifting through the gentle currents. Locals speak in hushed tones of shadowy figures that appear along the Rivera's edge, dragging unsuspecting victims into the dark waters, leaving behind only the ripples that spread across the surface. Generations have passed down stories of the Rivera's dangers, making it both feared and infamous throughout the surrounding communities. The most chilling reports come from those who have witnessed the figures along the banks. Campers, hikers, and night travelers describe tall, human-shaped shadows that emerge from the tree line, moving deliberately toward people near the water. The shadows are often featureless, their forms dark and elongated, yet observers feel an undeniable presence, as if the figures are alive with malicious intent. Several accounts describe moments of paralyzing fear, when a person senses a cold hand reaching from the darkness to pull them toward the river. The figures seem to embody an otherworldly presence, drawing people toward the river with an unseen force. In each story, the victims vanish silently into the water, leaving only concentric ripples as evidence of the encounter. Those who witness the phenomenon often experience a profound sense of helplessness, a recognition that the river is not merely a place of natural danger, but a supernatural threat. Campers report additional unsettling phenomena beyond the shadowy figures. Strange lights are frequently seen hovering above the river, faint glows that flicker in colors that seem unnatural, pale blue, ghostly white, or an orange hue reminiscent of dying embers. The lights often follow the movement of the river, drifting slowly downstream or hovering just above the surface. Observers describe feeling drawn toward the lights, a magnetic pull that urges them closer. Some who approach the phenomenon claim that the lights vanish or split into multiple points before dissipating entirely, leaving the area silent and eerily still. Others report seeing reflections of the lights in the water, distorted and flickering, even when no natural source exists to create them. Auditory experiences amplify the haunting nature of the Wolf River. Campers frequently report hearing distant screams echoing across the water, high-pitched cries that rise and fall as if carried by the wind. Sometimes the screams sound human, filled with panic and anguish. At other times, they take on a distorted quality, almost animalistic, yet unmistakably sentient. The sounds seem to emanate from the middle of the river or the surrounding woods, but when investigators or witnesses attempt to locate the source, the echoes vanish, leaving only the ambient sound of water lapping against the banks and leaves rustling in the night breeze. Some have claimed that the cries repeat in a looping pattern, as if replaying moments of struggle that occurred long ago. Local legends provide chilling context for these occurrences. Many believe that the Wolf River has been a site of unnatural deaths for centuries, where people often lost travelers, loggers, or settlers have vanished mysteriously near the banks. Some versions of the story suggest that the figures dragging victims into water are spirits of the drowned, bound to the river in an endless cycle, seeking to reclaim new souls. Others speculate that the lights hovering above the water are manifestations of the same restless energy, spectral beacons intended to lure the living into the Rivera's embrace. Regardless of origin, the folklore emphasizes a recurring theme. The river is alive with forces beyond human understanding, where danger is both physical and supernatural. The river is alive with forces beyond human understanding, where danger is both physical and supernatural. The river is alive with forces beyond human understanding, where danger is both physical and supernatural. Paranormal investigators visiting the Wolf River have documented a range of anomalies consistent with local accounts. EMF meters spike unpredictably along the riverbanks, often near spots where shadowy figures have been reported. Thermal cameras reveal cold pockets of air that form suddenly, sometimes creating visible mist or condensation even on warm nights. Audio equipment occasionally captures faint splashes in calm waters, layered with indistinct voices or cries that have no identifiable source. One investigator recalled camping along the river when he saw a dark shape moving through the fog toward his tent. He reported a chilling sense of weight in the air, followed by a sudden silence. Later review of his audio recordings revealed muffled screams and water splashing, confirming the presence of something unexplained. Visitors frequently describe profound emotional and physical reactions to encounters along the Wolf River. Many experience an intense fear that grips the chest, causing trembling, nausea, or a paralyzing sense of urgency. The sensation of being watched is common, even when the forest appears empty. Some have felt sudden chills, as if invisible hands have brushed across the skin, or heard whispered warnings carried on the wind. These reactions reinforce the idea that the river itself is charged with a lingering, malevolent energy that interacts with the living in ways both subtle and terrifying. Even during daylight, subtle signs of the haunting persist. Ripples occasionally appear on otherwise still waters, and fleeting shadows can be glimpsed moving among trees along the banks. Lights have been reported at dawn or dusk, flickering just above the water's surface. And some visitors claim the feeling of being observed remains strong, even under bright sunlight. These subtle reminders suggest that the presence haunting the Wolf River never fully disappears, lingering beneath the surface and among the trees. The Wolf River is more than a flowing body of water. It is a place where tragedy, legend, and the supernatural converge. Shadowy figures dragging victims into the river, phantom splashes, eerie lights, and distant cries combine to create an environment charged with tension and dread. Travelers who venture near the river at night confront a space where the boundary between the living and the unseen feels perilously thin, and where the echoes of past tragedies continue to manifest in ways that are profoundly felt. For those who leave its banks unharmed, the memory lingers, a chilling testament to the Rivera's dark and enduring power. The Homachito River in southwest Mississippi winds through dense forests and low-lying wetlands, a river both beautiful and treacherous. Locals have long respected its waters, aware that beneath the calm surface lies a history of sudden, unpredictable currents that have claimed lives and overturned boats without warning. Over the years, tales have emerged of strange and supernatural occurrences, giving the river a reputation that goes far beyond natural danger. Visitors and locals alike speak of ghostly voices, empty boats drifting along the currents, and mysterious figures emerging from the mist, all of which contribute to the river's reputation. As a place where the line between the living and the spectral is thin and fragile, boaters on the Homachito River often recount experiences that defy explanation. Many describe being in calm, shallow waters one moment, only to encounter sudden currents strong enough to shift their boats or push them toward the bank. These surges appear without any warning, even on clear, windless days, and often coincide with moments when the river seems unnaturally quiet. Some witnesses report that as the currents begin, they hear soft, almost imperceptible voices calling their names, faint whispers carried over the water, as if the river itself is reaching out. The combination of sudden physical danger and auditory phenomena creates a sense of unease that is hard to shake. Empty boats are another frequent element of the Rivera-S haunting. These boats move against the current or in unusual patterns, as if guided by unseen hands. Others are described seeing entire canoes floating in misty areas, only to turn back and find them gone, as if swallowed by the fog. These unexplained movements reinforce the idea that the river is home to forces beyond ordinary understanding. Mist is a constant companion to the Homachito River, often rising from the water in thick, rolling banks that obscure visibility. Within the mist, figures have been seen emerging suddenly, moving with deliberate intent before vanishing into surrounding woods. Witnesses describe these figures as humanoid but indistinct, their features hidden by shadows and fog. Some appear to walk along the riverbank, while others seem to drift just above the water, their movements unnervingly smooth and silent. When approached, they disappear without a trace, leaving travelers questioning whether they were real or a product of imagination. Those who have seen the figures consistently report an overwhelming feeling of being observed. Auditory phenomena are particularly striking along the river. Many have heard voices carried on the wind, calling names with eerie familiarity. The sounds are rarely coherent sentences, often fragments or repeated syllables, yet they are distinct enough to provoke fear or caution. The voices sometimes seem to come from the mist, from the water itself, or even from the trees lining the banks. Boaters frequently report hearing these calls when navigating sudden currents. The combined effect of auditory and physical experiences reinforcing the impression of a conscious, unseen presence in the river. Pedestrians walking along the banks at night. The fog thickens at their approach, and shadows flicker at the edge of vision. The river occasionally seems to shift unnaturally, rippling in areas where there should be still water. Some have seen fleeting reflections of figures in the mist, pale and ghostly, appearing only for a moment before vanishing. Others feel sudden chills, the brush of unseen hands, or an inexplicable pressure that seems to follow them as they move along the riverbank. Even those who have spent their lives near the river describe an almost instinctual fear when approaching alone after dark. Local legends surrounding the Homachito River emphasize caution and respect. Native American stories speak of spirits inhabiting the water, claiming those who venture too far alone, while early settlers passed down warnings of sudden currents and strange apparitions. Many believe that the river carries memories of the past, a repository of events, accidents, and lives lost to its unpredictable waters. Some suggest that the empty boats and ghostly figures are echoes of those who perished, replaying moments of tragedy for those who wandered too close. Others think the river itself is sentient, manifesting, its will currents, fog, and sounds, to protect its secrets or warn intruders. Paranormal enthusiasts often attempt to document the river's strange activity. Cameras and audio devices sometimes capture fleeting shadows or distorted shapes in the mist. Recordings occasionally pick up soft voices, calling out names. Thermal sensors detect sudden drops in temperature along the banks or over the water. Boats left unattended are sometimes found moved or overturned after being on the river. Even skeptics admit that the combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences at the Homachito River is unsettling, defying simple explanation. The Homachito River is more than a waterway. It is a place where natural danger and the supernatural converge. The sudden currents, drifting empty boats, voices calling names, and misty figures all contribute to a landscape steeped in mystery. Those who approach the river after dark are advised to be cautious and respectful, for the waters have a history of claiming the unwary. The river remains a living testament to the stories of the past, a haunting corridor where the line between the living and the spectral blurs, and where every ripple, every whisper, and every shadow carries the weight of centuries. The Pascagoula River winds quietly through Mississippi's Gulf Coast region, its dark waters cutting a path through swamplands, cypress trees, and marshes that stood for centuries. By day, the river appears tranquil, offering a serene landscape of gently flowing water, moss-draped trees, and wildlife thriving along its banks. Fishermen cast lines, kayakers paddle carefully through narrow channels, and the air carries the scent of wet earth and vegetation. Yet beneath this calm exterior lies a long and unsettling history. The Pascagoula River is not only a natural landmark, but a site linked to mystery, disappearances, and the famous legend of the Pascagoula abduction. Locals and visitors alike describe experiences that blur the line between reality and the unexplained, where the river seems alive with shadows and unspoken energy. The river's notoriety stems in part from the Pascagoula abduction, a case from the 1970s in which two men reported being taken aboard a strange craft by humanoid beings. While skeptics have debated the story for decades, the river has long been associated with unexplained vanishings both before and after the event. Over time, residents have reported people disappearing along the banks, strange figures in fog, and odd disturbances on the water surface. These accounts have turned the river into a place where folklore and fear intermingle, leaving a lingering sense of caution for anyone traveling its shores after dusk. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the appearance of humanoid shapes in the fog. Witnesses describe figures that seem vaguely human but move with unnatural fluidity, appearing and disappearing with the mist that often blankets the river. Some report seeing elongated limbs, glowing eyes, or shadowy silhouettes hovering just above the water. A fisherman recalled paddling his small boat early one morning when thick fog rolled in unexpectedly. Out of the mist emerged a figure, standing motionless on the riverbank. He blinked, and the figure vanished entirely, leaving no footprints, no sound, only the soft ripple of water where it had been. Ripples forming in still waters are another eerie hallmark of the river. Even on calm days, visitors report seeing concentric ripples spreading across areas of the river where no one is present. One kayaker recounted drifting quietly through a narrow channel when ripples appeared suddenly around him, as if a submerged presence had disturbed the water. He glanced over the side of his boat, but saw nothing. Such disturbances often coincide with sightings of foggy figures or the sudden feeling of being watched, creating an unnerving sense that the river itself is aware of those who travel upon it. Perhaps the most unsettling reports involve people vanishing along the riverbanks. Witnesses have recounted friends or strangers walking near the water who disappear in plain sight, sometimes in the middle of conversations or while standing on a familiar trail. A local hiker described seeing a man stroll along a sandy bank, only to look away for a moment and find that the person had vanished completely. Footprints leading to the water's edge seemed to dissolve as though erased, and no trace remained to indicate where the individual had gone. Such incidents contribute to the Pascagoula River's reputation as a place where reality can shift suddenly, leaving observers disoriented and fearful. Visitors also report a combination of tactile and sensory phenomena. Sudden chills sweep across the riverbanks, even on warm days. An oppressive silence sometimes replaces the natural sounds of birds and water. And the air feels heavy, almost charged, as if something unseen is observing. Some describe a subtle tugging sensation, a feeling of being followed along narrow paths, or fleeting glimpses of movement from the corner of the eye. Some describe a subtle tugging sensation, a feeling of being followed along narrow paths, or fleeting glimpses of movement from the corner of the eye. These experiences combine to create an environment where the ordinary and the extraordinary overlap, where the Rivera's beauty masks a latent and powerful presence. Paranormal investigators have explored the Pascagoula River to document its unusual activity. Audio recordings capture faint, unidentifiable noises of soft whispers, splashes, and distant hums. Thermal imaging has revealed pockets of cold that appear unexpectedly along the banks, corresponding to locations where foggy humanoid shapes were seen. Long-exposure photography occasionally captures blurred forms moving across the river or hovering just above the water. Experts suggest that the combination of emotional energy from historic disappearances, the dense mist, and the natural acoustics of the river can create residual impressions that manifest as visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena for those nearby. Local lore has kept the Rivera's haunting alive for generations. Stories of vanished people, ghostly figures, and mysterious ripples are passed from one resident to the next, warning travelers to exercise caution, particularly after nightfall or during dense fog. Some believe the river is a threshold, a place where human perception meets forces beyond understanding. Others attribute the sightings to natural phenomena amplified by imagination and history. Regardless of the explanation, the river maintains an air of quiet menace, a place where ordinary moments can quickly give way to the extraordinary. Despite its eerie reputation, the Pascagoula River continues to attract visitors. Fishermen, kayakers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts come hoping to witness or experience its mysteries firsthand. Many leave with stories of fog-shrouded humanoid figures, ripples forming on calm waters, and people who vanish as if swallowed by the river itself. The Pascagoula River is more than a body of water flowing through Mississippi's Gulf Coast. It is a living archive of fear, mystery, and legend. Those who wander its banks or float upon its surface are. They are reminded that some rivers hold more than water. They hold the echoes of disappearances, the lingering presence of unexplained forces, and the enduring legend of the Pascagoula abduction. The Big Sunflower River in the Delta region winds lazily through flat, fertile fields, its dark waters reflecting the cypress trees and overhanging branches that line its banks. By day, it is a place of quiet beauty, where fishermen cast lines and birds skim the surface, and the humid air carries the scent of rich soil and river water. Yet when night falls, the river transforms into a place steeped in legend and mystery, haunted by events that locals have whispered about for generations. The Big Sunflower River is said to be home to restless spirits, their presence revealed through fleeting figures, unexplained lights, and the eerie movement of empty boats along the water. The most frequently reported phenomenon involves children playing along the riverbanks after dark. Witnesses often describe seeing small figures laughing and running through the mist that rises off the water at night. But when anyone approaches, the figures vanish suddenly, leaving the banks empty and silent, with no trace of footsteps or disturbance. Locals say these are the spirits of children lost in the river over decades of victims of accidental drownings, floods, or misadventures along the currents. The scenes are described as simultaneously heartwarming and chilling, a fleeting glimpse of innocence trapped between the living world and the next. Lights in the trees along the riverbanks add another layer of mystery. Witnesses describe sudden flickers, glowing orbs, or elongated beams of light that appear between the branches, moving in ways that defy natural explanation. Some observers claim the lights follow them as they walk along the river, darting from tree to tree, while others report seeing them hover silently above the water. The illumination is inconsistent and often disappears the instant it is focused on, creating an unsettling interplay of shadow and brightness. Locals warn that these lights are connected to the spirits along the river, Gedinga, or sometimes Luringa those who venture too close to the water. Boats on the Big Sunflower River also behave in inexplicable ways. Several accounts describe vessels appearing in the distance, empty of crew, moving steadily upriver, without any visible propulsion. Observers report that these boats appear fully functional, sometimes carrying lanterns or fishing equipment, yet no living hand controls them. The ghostly crafts glide across the surface with unnerving smoothness, passing under bridges and around bends with apparent purpose. Some witnesses claim the boat stops suddenly when they approach, vanishing entirely if anyone attempts to investigate too closely. Paranormal enthusiasts believe the boats are manifestations of spirits, replaying routines from life, or guiding the souls of the lost along familiar paths. Auditory phenomena accompany these visual experiences. The laughter of children is often accompanied by faint splashes along the river, suggesting play in shallow waters. Yet when listeners strain to locate the sounds, the banks remain empty. Sometimes the river carries faint echoes of whispered warnings, names being called, or the creak of oars dipping into water, though no living person is present. These sounds appear to come from multiple points at once, creating a sense of the river as a living entity, aware and responsive to those who traverse it at night. Paranormal investigators have documented multiple anomalies along the Big Sunflower River. EMF readings often spike near locations where lights flicker in the trees, or children are reportedly seen. Thermal cameras reveal sudden drops in temperature along the riverbanks, often coinciding with ghostly appearances. Audio equipment captures faint splashes, voices, and the creaking of wood against water, even when the river is still and no boat is present. One investigator recounted paddling along the river at midnight when a sudden glow appeared among the trees. In the next moment, a small boat silently emerged from the mist, drifting upriver with no occupant, and vanished seconds later. The recordings later confirmed soft splashes and faint whispers that had no identifiable source. Local legend ties the phenomena to historical tragedies along the river. The Delta region, prone to floods and accidents, has claimed countless lives over the decades, and many believe the spirits of the deceased continue to linger. Some say the children playing along the banks are echoes of those lost in past floods or drownings. The mysterious lights are thought to represent the spirits themselves, or perhaps warnings to the living. Empty boats moving upriver are said to carry the memories of fishermen, travelers, or families who met their end on the river, their energy preserved in the water and along its edges. Visitors often report strong emotional and physical reactions to encounters along the Big Sunflower River. Many describe a chill running through the body, an oppressive weight in the chest, or a sense of being observed. Others report goosebumps, nausea, or a compulsion to leave the riverbank immediately. Even those who do not see the apparitions often sense their presence, a feeling of unseen eyes watching from the trees, or the water subtly moving beneath a boat when no one is aboard. Even in daylight, the river retains subtle signs of its spectral activity. Ripples occasionally appear on still waters with no cause, and shadows in the trees sometimes shift unnaturally. Small lights may flicker along the riverbanks at dawn or dusk, and fishermen sometimes feel a strange, inexplicable sense of unease while casting their lines. These signs serve as quiet reminders that the Rivera's supernatural energy never fully dissipates. The Big Sunflower River is more than a body of water. It is a living testament to memory, tragedy, and lingering energy. Children playing along the banks, ghostly lights in the trees, and empty boats moving upriver combine to create an environment charged with mystery and tension. Travelers who venture near the river at night confront a space where the boundary between the living and the dead feels fragile, and where echoes of the past persist vividly in both sight and sound. For those who leave its banks, the memory lingers, a chilling reminder that some rivers never release the spirits they carry. The Buffalo River in northern Mississippi winds through dense forests and rolling hills, its dark waters calm in appearance, but treacherous in history. For centuries, this river has claimed countless lives, a site marked by hundreds of drownings, many of which occurred suddenly and without warning. Early settlers, Native Americans, and travelers alike have fallen victim to its swift currents, hidden snags, and deceptively deep sections. Over time, the river has gained a reputation not only for its natural dangers, but also for paranormal activity that seems to linger along its banks. Visitors speak of ghostly hands, phantom figures, and eerie whispers creating a sense that the Buffalo River remembers those it has claimed and seeks to warn or ensnare the living. Travelers along the river's banks frequently report the sensation of being touched by unseen hands. Some describe cold fingers brushing their arms or shoulders, while others feel a firm tug, as if invisible hands are attempting to pull them toward the water. Boaters recount moments when their craft feels unusually heavy on one side, a subtle shift that suggests unseen forces trying to tip the boat or push them into the river. The experiences are never violent in a conventional sense, but the sensation of contact is unmistakable, leaving a lingering fear that the spirits of the drowned are reaching out, either in warning or in restless anguish. Phantom figures are also a common phenomenon along the Buffalo River. Witnesses often report seeing vague, shadowy shapes moving along the water's edge. These figures are rarely clear, often appearing as blurred silhouettes, but they are unmistakably human in form. Some are described as men and women from earlier centuries wearing period clothing. Others appear as children, small and fleeting, darting between trees or vanishing behind reeds. When observers attempt to approach, the figures disappear without a trace, leaving only the sound of the river and a sudden, chilling stillness. Whispers are perhaps the most unsettling of all the experiences reported along the Buffalo River. Travelers at night describe soft voices carried on wind, words that are faint yet intelligible. The messages often urge the listener to leave, to turn back, or to respect the water's edge. Some claim the whispers carry the names of those who approach, as if the river or its spirits can sense the living and call out directly to them. The combination of auditory and tactile phenomena, the whispers, the cold touches, the tugging hands, creates an overwhelming sense of unease, leaving visitors with a deep-seated impression that the river is alive with memory and intent. Boaters have also described their vessels acting strangely along the river. Small fishing boats or canoes sometimes drift without visible cause, turning sharply or slowing abruptly in areas where the current should push them forward. Some report feeling a presence in the stern or bow, a weight or pressure that cannot be explained by wind or water. Others are recounted seeing shapes in the water itself, ghostly forms beneath the surface that mimic the movements of the living, only to vanish the moment one focuses on them. These experiences reinforce the idea that the Buffalo River is a liminal space. Pedestrians walking along the banks at night also encounter unusual phenomena. The river seems to shift in subtle ways, rippling without wind or disturbance. Shadows move at the edge of vision, often disappearing when attention is directed toward them. Many report sudden chills, as if the river exhales cold air, and a pervasive feeling of being observed, followed, or guided by unseen eyes. In these moments, even those who have spent their lives near the river describe a deep, instinctual fear, the kind that speaks to something ancient and aware, a force that has witnessed centuries of tragedy and refuses to let go. Local legends about the Buffalo River emphasize its deadly history and supernatural presence. Native American tales describe the river as inhabited by spirits that claim the unwary, a guardian of sorts for sacred or dangerous areas. Settler stories speak of drowned children, farmers, and travelers whose energy lingers along the banks, manifesting as ghostly figures or tactile sensations. Many believe that the spirits are restless, tied to the river by sudden death and unresolved fear, their appearances serving both as warning and as a reminder of the Rivera's lethal reputation. Paranormal enthusiasts have attempted to document the phenomena along the Buffalo River. Cameras have captured blurred shapes moving near the water, and night vision equipment occasionally shows fleeting figures gliding along the banks. Audio devices often pick up faint whispers or disembodied voices, sometimes repeating words or names later heard by visitors. Even the most skeptical observers report experiencing sudden cold spots, unexplained touches, or fleeting shadows, leading many to conclude that the river holds something beyond the natural world, a presence that echoes centuries of tragedy. The Buffalo River remains a vital and frequently traversed waterway, yet its haunting reputation persists. Locals advise caution, particularly at night, warning travelers not to walk alone or linger near the banks. The ghostly hands, phantom figures, and whisper warnings all serve as reminders of the Rivera's long history of claiming lives, an enduring presence of those who were lost. Crossing or walking along its shores is not merely a journey through the landscape, but a confrontation with memory, tragedy, and the supernatural forces said to inhabit the water. The Buffalo River is more than a river. It is a repository of sorrow and vigilance. Every ripple, shadow, and whisper carries the weight of centuries of drowned lives. For those who approach it after dark, the experience is a stark reminder that some waters are haunted not only by history, but by spirits who refuse to rest. The river demands respect, caution, and awareness, for its past reaches into the present, and its unseen inhabitants are never far from those who wander too close. The Leaf River winds silently through southeast Mississippi, cutting a path through dense forests, wetlands, and low-lying farmland. By day, the river is calm and inviting, its waters reflecting the sky and the moss-draped trees along its banks. Fishermen cast lines from small boats, and wildlife thrives along the banks. Yet for those who know its history and heed the whispers of local lore, the Leaf River is far from tranquil. Over the decades, the river has earned a reputation for swallowing those who trespass, for harboring the restless spirits of long-dead sailors, and for manifesting phenomena that defy ordinary explanation. Locals speak of it in hushed tones, warning travelers to respect its waters and the mysteries that lie beneath. Much of the Rivera's haunting stems from maritime tragedies. In the 1800s and early 1900s, sailors navigating the Leaf River frequently faced hidden sandbars, treacherous currents, and sudden floods. Many perished in the dark waters, and their bodies were sometimes never recovered. Over time, witnesses have reported seeing figures resembling these sailors walking along the riverbanks, their silhouettes appearing solid yet distant, clothed in tattered uniforms or wet garments, as though continuing their endless watch over the river. One fisherman recalled seeing a shadowy figure pacing along a narrow stretch of the bank on a foggy morning. The manna, or rather, the apparition has seemed to vanish when approached, leaving only the faint scent of brine and old timber. Ripples and otherwise calm waters are another hallmark of the Leaf River's strange activity. Even when the surface is still, small concentric circles appear, moving outward in smooth, unbroken patterns. Locals describe moments when these ripples form as if some Ania or some thing that has disturbed the water beneath, yet no boat, animal, or wind could account for motion. One kayaker recounted drifting along a glassy section of the river when ripples spread outward from a point several feet ahead. He paddled forward, expecting to see a submerged branch or animal, but found nothing. The sensation of being observed was unmistakable, as if the river itself were aware of his presence. The Leaf River is also notorious for sudden and dense fog. Visitors report the air thickening with mist that appears without warning, hiding entire sections of the river and obscuring landmarks that should be visible. This fog often arrives silently, transforming familiar stretches of water into a labyrinth of shadows and shapes. Those caught in it frequently report disorientation, hearing sounds amplified by the mist, the faint creak of old boats, the distant lapping of water, or whispers carried from unseen sources along the banks. A woman walking along a familiar path recalled stepping into thick fog, only to feel a sudden chill wrap around her legs. Sounds of footsteps echoed from all directions, yet when she looked around, the riverbanks were empty, and the fog seemed to close behind her, swallowing the path she had just walked. Many visitors to the Leaf River also report a combination of auditory, visual, and physical sensations. Shadowy forms appear at the edge of vision. Footsteps echo along deserted banks, and sudden chills sweep across the body even on warm days. Some feel a subtle tugging at clothing or the sense that some Ania or something is guiding them away from certain stretches of the river. Witnesses describe the experience as both unsettling and immersive, a feeling that the river itself is alive with memory, grief, and unseen watchers who have lingered for decades. Paranormal investigators have documented multiple anomalies along the Leaf River. Audio recordings capture faint, unexplained creaks, ripples, and whispers that cannot be attributed to natural causes. Thermal imaging detects sudden pockets of cold air rising from a water or riverbank, often corresponding with areas where Sailorsa figures have been reported. Motion sensors sometimes activate without cause, and long-exposure photography occasionally reveals faint, human-like shapes hovering above the water or drifting along the banks. Long-exposure photography occasionally reveals faint, human-like shapes hovering above the water or drifting along the banks that continue to manifest for those who enter its waters. Local lore reinforces the Rivera's chilling reputation. Residents warn that trespassing along its banks or venturing into the water after dark can be dangerous, not just physically, but spiritually. Stories of shadowy sailors, Rippling waters and fog that hides entire sections of the river have been passed down for generations, forming a collective memory that blends tragedy with legend. The Leaf River is seen as a place where ordinary observation meets something beyond understanding, where the past refuses to remain buried beneath the water. Despite its dark reputation, the river continues to attract fishermen, hikers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts. Many leave with vivid recollections of ghostly figures moving along the banks, ripples forming mysteriously in still waters, and fog so thick that entire stretches of the river disappear from sight. The Leaf River is more than a winding waterway. It is a living repository of memory, tragedy, and lingering spirits. Those who venture near its banks are reminded that some rivers hold more. Than water, they hold echoes of lives, loss, the persistent presence of the unseen, and the unnerving sense that the past is never truly gone. The Homachito Bayou in southern Mississippi winds silently through thick cypress forests, its murky waters reflecting the dark green of the overhanging trees and the silver shimmer of the moon. By day, the Homachito Bayou appears tranquil, a quiet waterway where herons fish along the edges, and the air carries the smell of wet earth and moss. But after night falls, the Homachito Bayou becomes a place of eerie phenomena, a haunting presence felt by anyone who dares to linger along its banks. Locals whisper of shadowy forms moving through the reeds, mysterious lights floating above the water, and boats that vanish without explanation. All evidence, they say, of the restless spirits who never left the bayou as treacherous currents. Witnesses frequently describe dark, humanoid shapes moving in the reeds along the water's edge. These figures are tall and featureless, their forms distorted by the shadows cast in the trees and moonlight. Observers report seeing them shift unnaturally, sometimes emerging fully from the foliage, only to vanish the moment anyone tries to approach. Campers and fishermen alike describe the unsettling sensation of being watched, the figures appearing in their peripheral vision and disappearing when directly looked at. Locals claim these shadowy forms are the spirits of people lost to the bayou, victims of its unpredictable currents, sudden drop-offs, or swift flooding, bound to the water, where their lives were claimed. Floating lights are another common phenomenon reported on the Homachito Bayou. Witnesses describe small, ethereal glows hovering just above the water, often appearing in clusters or drifting slowly downriver. Some lights are soft and blue, others pale white, flickering as though they're being carried by an unseen hand. Fishermen recount seeing these lights move along the surface of the bayou, weaving between the cypress knees and reflected branches. Many describe a subtle compulsion to approach them, a pull that feels both magnetic and menacing. When one draws near, the lights vanish or split into multiple points before fading entirely. Paranormal enthusiasts believe these lights represent the lingering energy of the lost, lingering in the bayou to warn, guide, or simply replay fragments of their lives. Perhaps the most unnerving reports concern boats disappearing without explanation. Visitors docking small watercraft along the bayou have woken to find their boats missing, sometimes recovered later downstream with no signs of damage or drag marks. Other times, boats are never seen again, leaving owners puzzled and frightened. In some accounts, people have seen vessels move of their own accord, drifting slowly along the water with no occupant, as if guided by an invisible hand. Locals speculate that the bayou itself reclaims the vessels, carrying them away as a reminder that the river and its spirits remain in control. Auditory phenomena amplify the haunting nature of the Homachito Bayou. Observers often report faint splashing sounds along the water or rustling the reeds, even when the bayou is still. Some hear soft whispers, distant laughter, or muffled cries echoing across the water, voices that cannot be traced to any human source. On still nights, campers have described the sensation of footsteps brushing along the banks, only to discover the area empty. Paranormal investigators using audio equipment have recorded overlapping layers of sound of splashing, creaking wood, and faint human voices that correspond with reported sightings and lend weight to the accounts of the bayou as supernatural activity. Local legend ties the phenomena to the bayou's history. The Homachito has long been recognized as a dangerous waterway, notorious for swift currents, hidden sandbars, and sudden flooding. Many who navigated in the pasta trappers, fishermen, and travelers met untimely deaths, their bodies swept away into the dark water. According to lore, the spirits of these individuals remain bound to the bayou, replaying fragments of their lives in shadowy forms, floating lights, and the movement of uncrewed boats. Some stories suggest the bayou itself is alive with memory, absorbing the fear and loss of the past and projecting it outward to the living. Visitors often report intense physical and emotional reactions to encounters at the bayou. Many describe a sudden chill, goosebumps, or an oppressive heaviness in the air. Witnesses sometimes experience nausea or dizziness, as if the presence of the lost exerts a tangible weight on the body. The sensation of being watched is pervasive. Even when the water and reeds appear empty, observers feel eyes upon them, a silent, omnipresent attention. These reactions reinforce the notion that the Homachito Bayou is not merely haunted in legend, but actively charged with supernatural energy. Even during daylight, the bayou exhibits subtle signs of it haunting. Shadowy movements are occasionally glimpsed among the cypress roots, and reflections in the water can appear distorted, revealing forms that vanish when looked at directly. Small lights sometimes flicker along the banks in the early morning mist, and unexplained splashes ripple across otherwise calm waters. Though less dramatic than nighttime phenomena, these subtle signs hint at the persistent energy that lingers within the bayou, a reminder that the spirits never truly depart. The Homachito Bayou is more than a waterway. It is a repository of memory, tragedy, and spectral presence. Shadowy forms in the reeds, mysterious floating lights, and boats moving or disappearing without explanation combine to create an atmosphere both eerie and immersive. Those who venture along its banks at night confront a place where the past and present intersect, where the lost remain visible only in fleeting glimpses, and where the water itself seems alive with restless energy. For those who leave the bayou behind, the memory lingers, a chilling testament to a river that carries more than water, a place where the spirits of the lost continue to roam. The Wolf Bayou in Jackson County winds through thick cypress swamps and dense pine forests, its dark waters reflecting the sky in shadowy hues. By day, it seems serene, a quiet stretch of water lined with moss-draped trees and soft undergrowth. By night, however, the bayou takes on an entirely different character, one shrouded in mystery, danger, and legend. For decades, the area has been known for a series of unexplained vanishings of campers, fishermen, and travelers. Those who have ventured into the fog-laden banks tell stories of ghostly apparitions, sudden mists, and voices calling their names, phenomena that have solidified Wolf Bayou as one of Jackson County's most notorious haunted locations. Campers near the bayou report that the area can transform in an instant. Fog rises suddenly from the water, thick and white, obscuring paths, tents, and even the bayou itself. Travelers who are confident in their bearings often find themselves disoriented within moments. The mist seems alive, curling around trees, snaking through campsites, and clinging to clothing and hair. Some describe it as cold and damp, chilling the body and numbing the mind, while others feel subtle pressure, as if the fog is watching, waiting, or guiding them somewhere unseen. For those unfamiliar with the terrain, a sudden fog can be terrifying, transforming an ordinary evening into an experience of helpless confusion. Apparitions are a constant element of the bayou's eerie reputation. Witnesses describe seeing figures standing along the banks, sometimes partially submerged in the water, other times framed against the dense foliage. These figures are often indistinct, appearing as silhouettes that shift and shimmer, yet there is a definite human quality to them. Some observers report seeing campers who had vanished years ago, their clothes and features faintly recognizable, frozen in moments of panic or distress. Others see shadowy shapes that seem entirely unfamiliar, standing silently as though observing the living. When approached, these figures disappear, leaving only an empty bank or the slow ripple of water behind them. Voices carried over the water are another hallmark of the bayou's haunting. Campers frequently report hearing their names called. Faint at first and carried lightly on the wind, then growing louder and more urgent. Sometimes the voices echo from unexpected directions, seeming to originate from deep within the swamp or across the water. These calls are often personal, using the exact name of the person present, creating a chilling sense of recognition. Some travelers insist that the voices are warnings, urging them to leave the area, while others feel that the sounds are lures, enticing them toward the water or deeper into the fog. Regardless of intent, the auditory phenomena create a persistent tension that accompanies anyone who dares to spend the night along the bayou. Disappearances at Wolf Bayou have contributed heavily to its haunted reputation. Over the years, numerous campers and fishermen have vanished without explanation, leaving behind empty tents, overturned chairs, or abandoned equipment. Some of these cases are attributed to the bayou's natural hazards, sudden currents, hidden sinkholes, or treacherous banks, but others defy rational explanation. Witnesses have reported seeing figures drifting into the fog moments before individuals went missing, or hearing voices calling friends who were later found miles away or not at all. The repeated nature of these vanishings has created a legend of a place that actively resists the intrusion of the living. Those who traverse the bayou at night often speak of a palpable presence, an energy that seems to press against the skin and mind. Fog thickens unnaturally, ripples form on calm water, and unseen eyes seem to track every movement. Travelers describe cold drafts that sweep across campsites, soft footsteps behind them, and almost hypnotic draw toward the center of the bayou, where many disappearances have been reported. Some recount the sensation of being tugged or guided by invisible hands, a force that is neither threatening nor friendly, but insistent. An ecosystem in which the bayou itself, or the spirits inhabiting it, interact with those who enter. Local folklore surrounding Wolf Bayou reinforces these accounts. Native American legends speak of spirits who guard the waters, claiming those who show disrespect or wander alone at night. Early settlers added their own stories, describing travelers who vanish suddenly, leaving only whispers and water ripples in their wake. Today, stories continue to circulate among campers, fishermen, and hikers, passing down warnings to avoid the bayou at night or to travel only in groups. Many believe that the bayou's spirits are tied to the fog, using it as a veil to conceal their movements and lure the unwary. Others think the apparitions and voices are echoes of past tragedies, residual energy that persists long after the living have departed. Paranormal investigators often visit Wolf Bayou seeking evidence of the unexplained. Cameras sometimes capture blurred figures on the banks or glowing shapes in the mist. Audio devices occasionally record faint, indistinct voices, calling names or whispering warnings. Even those who arrive with skepticism often leave unsettled, citing sudden chills, unexplainable movements, or a feeling of being watched as confirmation that the bayou holds secrets beyond understanding. Wolf Bayou is more than a river. It is a threshold between the ordinary and the supernatural. The fog, apparitions, and voices serve as reminders of the lives lost and the mysteries that linger in the swampy waters. Campers and travelers are advised to approach with caution, never venturing alone after dark, and always respecting the strange, enduring presence that seems to guard the bayou. Every ripple, every whisper, and every shadow carries the weight of history and tragedy, making Wolf Bayou a place where the living and the unseen intersect in ways that are impossible to ignore. The Chautauqua River winds through Harrison County, Mississippi, cutting a path through low-lying wetlands, thick forests, and quiet neighborhoods that seem untouched by time. By day, the river appears serene, its dark waters reflecting the moss-laden trees and the occasional fishing boat gliding along the current. Birds call from the banks, and the air is heavy with the scent of wet earth and river mud. Yet beneath this peaceful veneer lies a history steeped in tragedy and romance, and locals know the Chautauqua River is not merely a natural landmark. It is a place where stories of drowned lovers and lingering spirits have persisted for generations. The river has long been associated with unexplained phenomena that leave visitors uneasy, as though the past itself refuses to remain hidden beneath the water's surface. The legend of the drowned lovers is perhaps the most enduring tale associated with the river. According to local lore, Two young lovers from rival families met secretly near the Chautauqua many decades ago. One evening, they attempted to escape together by boat, but a sudden storm capsized them in the dark waters. Neither survived, and their bodies were reportedly never recovered. Over time, the story has become intertwined with accounts of ghostly activity along the river. Visitors report feeling the lingering presence of the couple, as if their spirits remain bound to the river where their lives ended so abruptly. Locals claim that the energy of lost love and sudden death has imbued the river with a spectral presence that persists to this day. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the sighting of figures floating in the water. Witnesses often describe pale shapes drifting just beneath the surface, illuminated faintly by moonlight or reflected starlight. These figures sometimes appear to be reaching upward, as though attempting to escape the Rivera's pull, while other times they seem to drift lazily with the current, frozen in time. A fisherman recalled noticing what appeared to be a person lying face up near the center of the river. As he approached with his boat, the figure vanished without a ripple, leaving him startled and uneasy. Others have reported seeing two figures together, mirroring the tale of the drowned lovers, only to disappear as they drew near. These sightings are often accompanied by a profound sense of sorrow and longing that lingers long after the witnesses leave the water. Lights moving against the current are another common feature of the haunting. Visitors often report small, flickering orbs traveling upstream, defying the natural flow of the river. Some describe them as glowing blue or white, like lanterns suspended in the mist, while others see faint reddish lights. One night, a couple walking along the riverbank observed several lights drifting slowly upstream. They attempted to approach with a flashlight, only to watch the lights vanish or reappear further along the river, as if guided by an unseen force. Many locals interpret these phenomena as spirits attempting to retrace their final moments, replaying events that the living can glimpse but never fully understand. Whispers warning travelers away from the riverbank are also frequently reported. People walking near the water at night describe hearing soft, urgent voices, often indistinct but unmistakably cautionary. Some hear their names called. Others hear words like leave or stay back, carried on the wind that does not seem to correspond with natural currents. A woman camping near the river reported hearing whispered warnings while sitting on the bank. She turned quickly, seeing nothing, yet the whispers continued, seeming to emanate from the water itself. The experience left her with a lasting impression that the river is. The river is guarded by unseen presences who do not welcome intruders. Visitors to the Chautauqua River often describe a combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences. Shadows flit along the edge of the water, distant voices echo across the river, and sudden chills sweep over the skin even on warm nights. Some report a feeling of being watched, or a subtle tugging at their feet as if the river itself is drawing attention to their presence. These experiences are immersive, leaving an impression that the river is alive with memory, grief, and lingering spirits. Paranormal investigators who have visited the river have documented several anomalies. Audio recordings capture faint whispers, indistinct splashes, and sounds resembling the murmur of voices carried across the water. Thermal imaging frequently detects pockets of cold rising from the river, often aligning with reported sightings of figures or lights. Long exposure photography occasionally reveals blurred shapes floating above the water or standing along the banks. Experts suggest that the tragic events tied to the drowned lovers, combined with the strong emotional energy of other deaths along the river, may have created residual spiritual impressions, which continue to manifest for those who venture near the water. Local lore reinforces the river's eerie reputation. Residents warn visitors to respect the water, particularly after dark, noting that the river is not merely a passage, but a repository of sorrow, love, and loss. Stories of ghostly figures, moving lights, and whispered warnings are told across generations, creating a sense of caution for anyone approaching the banks. Despite its haunting reputation, the Chautauqua River continues to draw fishermen, hikers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts. Many leave with vivid memories of figures floating in the water, lights moving against the current, and whispers that seem to follow them along the riverbank. The Chautauqua River is more than a body of water winding through Harrison County. It is a place where tragedy and legend converge, where ghostly echoes of drowned lovers and other restless spirits linger, reminding all who approach that some rivers hold the past within their currents, and some presences never truly let go. The Chunky River in East Mississippi winds through dense forests, marshy banks, and open stretches of slow-moving water, its dark surface reflecting the towering trees and drifting morning mist. By day, it appears serene, a quiet river where anglers cast lines and wildlife thrives along the banks. But locals have long spoken in hushed tones about the Rivera's darker side, a presence that emerges after nightfall or in thick fog. The Chunky River is said to be haunted by the spirits of explorers, timber workers, and travelers who vanish along its course, their lingering energy manifesting in phantom boats, unexplained footsteps, and a fog that seems to reach out and engulf anyone who ventures too far. The most common reports involve phantom boats drifting along the river. Witnesses describe small wooden vessels appearing suddenly along the river. These boats often appear fully intact, occasionally carrying lanterns or timbering tools, yet no living occupant is ever visible. Witnesses describe small wooden vessels appearing suddenly along the river. These boats often appear fully intact, occasionally carrying lanterns or timbering tools, yet no living occupant is ever visible. Observers report the boats gliding smoothly along the water as though guided by unseen hands, changing direction unexpectedly, and sometimes disappearing entirely when approached. Witnesses describe small wooden vessels appearing suddenly along the river. These boats often appear fully intact, occasionally carrying lanterns or timbering tools, yet no living occupant is ever visible. Observers report the boats gliding smoothly along the water as though guided by unseen hands, changing direction unexpectedly, and sometimes disappearing entirely when approached. Some locals believe the boats are echoes of the timber workers who spent decades navigating the river for logging, replaying their work, unable to leave the water that claimed them. Unexplained footsteps along the riverbanks are another frequent phenomenon. Campers, fishermen, and hikers recount hearing soft, deliberate steps in the underbrush, moving parallel to water, yet when they investigate, the banks are empty. The sound of footsteps often comes in a regular patternsa, sometimes slow, almost cautious, other times quick and fleeting, as if chasing or fleeing. Witnesses often report a cold draft accompanying the sounds, and the feeling of being watched is almost constant. Paranormal investigators suggest these footsteps are residual hauntings, echoes of those who walked the Rivera's edge decades ago, leaving impressions that still resonate in the air and along the water. The Chunky Rivera's fog add an even more ominous layer to its reputation. Visitors have reported sudden banks of dense mist rising from the water, obscuring the river and the forest alike. The fog moves almost sentiently, creeping along the banks and following anyone who dares to enter its reach. Those caught within the mist describe disorientation, an oppressive chill, and a sensation of unseen hands brushing against their skin. Some report faint whispers or muted cries echoing from the haze, often accompanied by sudden splashes or the sound of oars in empty boats. Many locals warn that the fog is both protective and dangerous. It conceals the Rivera's supernatural phenomena while simultaneously drawing the living deeper into its reach, where they risk becoming part of the Rivera's legend. Visual phenomena extend beyond the phantom boats and fog. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed among the trees, dark forms moving with purpose or lingering near the banks. Some witnesses claim to have seen lumberjacks in period clothing, carrying axes or dragging timber, disappearing when approached. Others describe explorers, silhouettes, tall and ghostly, wading through shallow water or standing silently along the edge of the river. The apparitions are rarely stationary, and their sudden movements or vanishing acts often provoke a deep sense of unease, reinforcing the notion that the Chunky River remains alive with the energy of those who never returned. Auditory encounters are equally unsettling. In addition to footsteps and distant splashes, visitors have reported faint chains rattling, the creak of boat oars, and low murmurs in indistinct voices. On foggy nights, these sounds are amplified, echoing across the water in ways that distort direction and distance. One investigator described sitting along the riverbank as the mist thickened, hearing repeated splashes and the sound of multiple sets of footsteps approaching, then fading into silence. Playback of recordings captured layered whispers and water disturbances that had no identifiable source, suggesting the presence of multiple spectral entities lingering near the river. Local legend provides historical context for these hauntings. The Chunky River was once a vital route for explorers, trappers, and timber workers. Many perished due to sudden flooding, treacherous currents, or accidents while hauling timber. Their spirits, it is said, remain bound to the river, replaying fragments of their lives in phantom boats, footsteps, and the enveloping fog. The Rivera's long history of danger and disappearance has fostered a deep respect among locals, who warn travelers to exercise caution, particularly after dark or during foggy conditions. Visitors often describe strong emotional and physical reactions when encountering Rivera's hauntings. Many experience sudden chills, goosebumps, or a pressing weight on the chest. The sensation of being watched is nearly universal, and some report an intense urge to retreat from the water. The fog itself is described as suffocating or disorienting, forcing people to retrace their steps blindly. Even those who do not see apparitions often feel the lingering energy of the river, a subtle but persistent presence that unsettles even the most rational observers. Even during daylight, subtle signs of the haunting persist. Shadows occasionally shift in unnatural ways along the banks, and ripples appear on calm water with no visible cause. Boats anchored along the shore may rock slightly, and the fog sometimes creeps through the trees in the morning, moving contrary to the wind. These small details suggest that the Chunky River's supernatural activity never fully dissipates, remaining a quiet but persistent presence. The Chunky River is more than a waterway. It is a living archive of memory, tragedy, and lingering energy. Phantom boats, unexplained footsteps, and enveloping fog combine to create an environment charged with history and supernatural tension. Those who venture along its banks at night confront a place where the living and the departed intersect, and where echoes of the past remain vividly alive. For those who leave the river behind, the memory lingers, a chilling reminder that some rivers carry more than water, and that the spirits of the lost never truly rest. The Bow Chitto River in southern Mississippi snakes through dense forests, swamps, and lowlands, its waters deceptively calm in daylight yet notorious for their hidden dangers. For centuries, the river has claimed lives through sudden currents, submerged debris, and deep channels that catch the unwary off guard. Its dark history has left a lingering presence that locals and travelers alike have come to respect and fear. Accounts of drownings and disappearances have given rise to stories of supernatural phenomena, making the Bow Chitto River one of the region's most infamous and haunted waterways. Those who venture near its banks or navigate its waters at night often report eerie experiences, glowing figures in the water, and disembodied voices calling from the darkness. Visitors to the river frequently describe glowing figures appearing just beneath the surface or along the water's edge. These figures often resemble humans, but their forms are indistinct and fluid, as if caught between this world and the next. Sometimes they appear as small children, other times as adults, standing or floating just beyond the reach of light. Witnesses report that these figures move deliberately, sometimes following boats or approaching individuals along the shoreline, only to vanish suddenly when approached. The glow is subtle, often a pale, ethereal light that illuminates only enough of the figure to create a sense of unease and fascination. Some locals believe these are the spirits of those who drown in the river, lingering to warn the living of the danger or replaying the moments of their tragic deaths. Boats on the Bow Chitto River have also been known to vanish inexplicably. Boaters recount moments when vessels drift suddenly, turning or moving against the current, only to disappear from sight within moments, sometimes reappearing later in another location or not at all. Those who have experienced such vanishings describe a chilling mixture of fear and disbelief, aware that something beyond the natural world is interacting with the river in ways that cannot be explained. The phenomenon often occurs in areas shrouded in fog or darkness, adding to the Rivera's reputation as a place where caution is essential. Auditory phenomena are a hallmark of the Bogue Chitto's haunted reputation. Visitors often report hearing voices calling from the water or surrounding trees. Sometimes the voices cry for help, clearly human yet impossible to locate. Other times, they whisper names or phrases, personalizing the experience in a way that unsettles even the most skeptical observer. The sounds appear to come from multiple directions, carried over the river by the night air, and are often accompanied by sudden gusts of wind or ripples that disturb the water. Campers and fishermen alike report that these auditory experiences intensify when they're alone, creating a pervasive sense of being watched, followed, or even beckoned toward the river itself. Pedestrians walking along the riverbanks at night have also described strange sensations. The ground sometimes feels unnaturally soft or shifting. Footsteps echo oddly, and shadows seem to move independently of the observer. Fog frequently rolls in, obscuring the landscape and creating an otherworldly effect, where figures and reflections appear blurred or distorted. Many who have walked the banks report chills that are more intense than what the air alone would produce, sometimes accompanied by a feeling of being touched lightly on the arm or shoulder. These subtle interactions amplify the river's sense of presence, reinforcing the belief that it is more than just a body of water, but a repository of lingering spirits and energy. The history of the Bogue Chitto River provides context for these haunting experiences. Native American legends speak of spirits inhabiting the water, guiding or claiming those who venture too close at night. Early settlers and travelers added stories of sudden drownings and disappearances, often attributing them to vengeful or restless spirits. Over time, the Rivera's supernatural reputation grew, blending documented tragedies with eyewitness accounts to create a landscape steeped in folklore. Today, locals caution against traveling alone near the river after dark, urging visitors to respect its power and history, lest they encounter the unseen forces said to inhabit its waters. Paranormal investigators have attempted to document the phenomena at the Bogue Chitto River, with mixed results. Cameras sometimes capture faint, blurred shapes moving beneath the surface or along the banks, while audio equipment occasionally records ghostly cries or voices calling names. Thermal sensors often detect sudden drops in temperature near the water, and visual anomalies appear in areas where the river is widest or most shadowed. Even skeptics admit that the combination of auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena creates a compelling case for a haunting that cannot be explained by natural causes alone. Despite its dangers and eerie reputation, the Bogue Chitto River remains in use. Boaters, anglers, and travelers continue to navigate its waters during the day. But many heed the warnings of locals, avoiding the river at night or traveling only in groups. Stories of glowing figures, vanishing boats, and cries in the darkness are passed down through generations, ensuring that the Rivera's supernatural reputation endures alongside its historical dangers. The Bogue Chitto River is more than a river. It is a living testament to centuries of human tragedy and the mysteries that linger in the dark water. Glowing figures, disappearing boats, and ghostly voices all serve as reminders that some places retain echoes of the past, manifesting in ways both subtle and terrifying. For those who venture near its banks at night, the experience is a confrontation with history, loss, and the unknown, a place where every ripple, every whisper, and every shadow carries the weight of the lives claimed by the river. The Coldwater River winds through northern Mississippi, cutting a path through dense forests, farmland, and quiet towns that seem frozen in time. By day, the river is deceptively serene, its dark waters glinting under the sun and reflecting the towering trees along its banks. Anglers cast lines, and the wildlife thrives in the shallow waters. Yet the Rivera's calm exterior hides a long history of mystery and tragedy. Locals warn that the Coldwater River is not merely a body of water, but a place where the curious may vanish without a trace, where the past lingers in the form of unseen hands, ghostly shapes, and fog that can swallow an entire shoreline. Over the decades, stories of disappearances, strange phenomena, and unexplained encounters have cemented the Rivera's reputation as a place to be approached with caution and respect. The river has long been associated with disappearances, often occurring in the most ordinary circumstances. Swimmers report vanishing midstream, as if the water itself has claimed them. A local fisherman recalls a story of a young man who waded into the river on a warm summer day. One moment he was laughing and splashing in the shallow water, and the next he had disappeared entirely. Friends and family searched for hours, but neither the man nor any trace of him was ever found. Such incidents have created a lingering fear that the river has an almost sentient quality, selectively claiming those who wander too far into its depths, or approach its waters unprepared for what might lie beneath. Phantom hands are another hallmark of the Coldwater Rivera's haunting. Visitors frequently describe sudden, icy sensations on their ankles or wrists, as though invisible fingers are tugging at them from below. One woman swimming near a bend in the river recounted feeling a cold, grasping force pull at her leg. She struggled and turned toward the sensation, but found no one nearby. The feeling was strong enough to make her flee to the shore, leaving her wet and shaken but unharmed. Many locals interpret these experiences as the spirits of those who perished in the river, unable to move on, reaching out to interact with the living in a warning or a demonstration of power. Foggy nights amplify the river's unnerving atmosphere. Dense mist often rolls in unexpectedly, blanketing the river and hiding the surrounding landscape. On such nights, visitors report shadowy figures appearing along the banks or moving across the water, only to vanish instantly when approached. One couple walking along the shoreline described seeing a group of human-like shapes emerging from fog. They paused in disbelief, and within moments, the figures had disappeared entirely, leaving only the quiet lapping of water against the shore. The fog seems to act as a veil between the living and the spirits, obscuring what is real and heightening the sense that the river is a place where ordinary rules do not apply. Visitors often hear distant splashes when the water is calm, faint cries or whispers carried on the wind, the eerie echo of footsteps along banks that appear deserted. Some report hearing low, mournful tones, like someone called for help from beneath the surface, or the soft murmur of voices that vanish the moment they focus on the sound. These experiences combine with sudden chills, phantom touches, and fleeting visual anomalies to create an immersive and unsettling presence along the river. Paranormal investigators have explored the Coldwater River to document its unusual activity. Audio recordings capture unexplained splashes, faint whispers, and murmurs that cannot be attributed to human activity. Thermal imaging reveals sudden pockets of cold along the shoreline and mid-river, often coinciding with reported phantom hands or vanishing figures. Long exposure photography has occasionally captured blurred shapes gliding above the water or along the banks. Experts theorize that the Rivera's combination of tragic drownings, frequent disappearances, and emotional energy from those affected may have left residual impressions that manifest as visual, tactile, and auditory phenomena. Local lore has reinforced the river's fearsome reputation for generations. Residents warn travelers to exercise caution, particularly on foggy nights or when entering the water alone. Stories of vanishing swimmers, phantom hands, and fleeting figures are passed down as warnings, creating an atmosphere in which respect for the river's power is paramount. The Coldwater River is seen not merely as a geographical feature, but as a repository of sorrow, mystery, and lingering spirits, where the living are reminded of the fragile boundary between themselves and the forces they cannot understand. Despite its dark reputation, the river continues to attract fishermen, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts, all hoping to witness the unexplained. Many leave with vivid memories of chilling sensations, shadowy shapes that vanish in an instant, and an eerie feeling of being watched from below the surface. The Coldwater River is more than a stretch of water winding through northern Mississippi. It is a place where tragedy, fear, and lingering energy converge, where phantom hands, disappearing swimmers, and fog-bound specters serve as constant reminders that some rivers do not forget, and some forces are never meant to be challenged. The Chickasaw River in southeast Mississippi flows steadily through dense forests and marshy lowlands, its waters dark and reflected beneath the shade of towering trees. By day, it is a peaceful river where fishermen cast lines and kayakers drift along its gentle currents, unaware of the history that permeates the water and banks. Yet for centuries, the Chickasaw has been the site of colonial conflicts, skirmishes, and tragic deaths, leaving behind a legacy that some say still haunts its waters. Visitors and locals alike speak of strange phenomena along the river, apparitions of soldiers marching along the banks, ghostly lights floating across the surface, and faint warnings whispered on the breeze that seem to come from nowhere at all. The most commonly reported sights involve apparitions of soldiers, often described in the uniforms of the 1700s and early 1800s. Witnesses recount seeing figures standing or marching along the riverbanks, rifles at the ready, faces grim and indistinct in the moonlight. Some appear as single figures, silently watching the water, while others emerge in groups, moving with precision and purpose as though retracing the steps of long-forgotten battles. When approached, the soldiers often vanish without a trace, leaving the riverbank empty but filled with a lingering sense of unease. Local folklore suggests these are the spirits of those who fell in colonial skirmishes. Bound to the river by the violence and sudden death they experienced centuries ago. Ghostly lights floating on the surface of the Chickasaw are another recurring phenomenon. Visitors describe small, pale orbs or flickering glows that drift across the water in no particular pattern. Some lights move in straight lines, as if following invisible paths, while others seem to hover, pulsate, or split into multiple points before vanishing entirely. Fishermen and boaters often report feeling inexplicably drawn toward these lights, a compulsion that disappears as soon as they turn to face the river directly. Locals claim the lights represent the lingering presence of those lost in battle, or settlers who perished near the river, their energy manifesting in a subtle but unmistakable illumination. Auditory phenomena add to the Rivera's reputation as a haunted site. Visitors frequently report faint whispers echoing from the banks, voices calling warnings or shouting names in a language that seems old and foreign. Some describe these sounds as coming from all directions at once, while others hear distinct phrases that vanish as soon as they try to locate the source. The whispers are often accompanied by the soft clatter of musket fire, or the distant sound of marching boots, creating the impression that the river carries the echoes of its violent past. Their origin impossible to trace, and their effect profoundly unsettling. Paranormal investigators visiting the Chickasaw River have documented a range of anomalies consistent with local accounts. EMF meters frequently spike along sections of the river where soldiers are reported, particularly near old battle sites or colonial encampments. Thermal imaging cameras reveal cold spots that appear suddenly, sometimes in shapes suggestive of human figures. Audio recordings capture faint whispers, distant footsteps, and occasional water disturbances that cannot be explained by natural causes. One investigator recalled sitting quietly along the riverbank when a faint light appeared over the surface of the water. Moments later, a figure in colonial attire seemed to emerge in the mist, standing silently before vanishing without a trace. Playback of recordings confirmed faint voices and movement that had no identifiable source, reinforcing the Rivera's eerie reputation. Local history helps explain why the Chickasaw River remained a locus of supernatural activity. The river was a critical route during colonial expansion, the site of disputes between settlers, indigenous populations, and military forces. Battles were fought along its banks, and countless lives were lost due to skirmishes, accidents, and sudden floods. Over time, the tragedy and violence of these events became part of the Rivera's identity, and many believe the energy of those lost has left a permanent mark. Some legends suggest the spirits are bound not only to the river itself, but to surrounding trees, marshes, and hills, replaying moments from their lives and deaths in a spectral loop. Visitors frequently report profound physical and emotional reactions to the haunting of a Chickasaw. Many describe a sudden chill or tightness in the chest, a sense of unease that seems to press down from the surrounding air. Others report goosebumps, dizziness, or the feeling of being observed by unseen eyes. The compulsion to retreat is strong. Even when the apparitions are faint or distant, the Rivera-esque atmosphere can feel suffocating. Some who have spent extended periods near the water report recurring dreams or visions of soldiers and battlefields, suggesting that the haunting extends beyond mere sight and sound. Even during daylight, the river retains subtle signs of its spectral presence. Shadows among the trees sometimes shift unnaturally, and the surface of the water can glimmer with light where no reflection should exist. Small orbs occasionally appear along the banks in early morning mist, and faint traces of footsteps or disturbed vegetation have been reported by hikers. These subtle reminders serve as evidence that the Chickasaw River's haunting persists, visible and audible to those sensitive to its lingering energy. The Chickasaw River is more than a waterway. It is a living record of history, tragedy, and spectral presence. Apparitions of soldiers, ghostly lights, and whispered warnings combine to create an atmosphere both eerie and immersive. Those who venture near its banks at night confront a place where the past and present converge, where echoes of colonial battles and lost lives remain vividly alive, and where the river itself seems to carry the memory of every soul who perished along its waters. For those who leave the Chickasaw behind, the experience lingers. The Wolf Creek River in northern Mississippi winds through dense forests and low-lying wetlands, its dark waters reflecting the shadows of ancient trees. By day, it is a tranquil river, a place where anglers cast lines and wildlife thrives along its banks. Yet beneath this calm surface lies a long history of mystery and tragedy, tied deeply to Native American legends and the unexplained vanishings of travelers. For centuries, local tribes spoke of spirits inhabiting the river, guardians of the land and water, whose presence could be benevolent or deadly depending on the respect shown to the river. Over time, settlers and modern visitors began reporting strange occurrences. Ghostly figures wading in the water, lights moving upriver against the current, and individuals vanishing near the banks with no trace, leaving the Wolf Creek River steeped in a reputation for supernatural activity. Witnesses often describe seeing figures moving through the river, particularly at dusk or on foggy nights. These apparitions are frequently humanoid, partially obscured by mist or the Rivera-esque dark reflection, yet their presence is undeniable. Some appear to wade through shallow waters along the banks, while others move in the center of the river, vanishing and reappearing in ways that defy logic. Observers report that the figures often resemble people from previous centuries, clothed in garments reminiscent of early Native Americans or 19th century settlers. They are silent, their movements deliberate yet ethereal, and they disappear when approached, leaving only ripples on the water as evidence of their passage. Lights moving upriver are another phenomenon that has captivated and frightened visitors. Small, glowing orbs appear along the water, floating steadily against the current, as if drawn by an unseen force, sometimes pausing mid-river, or shifting direction suddenly. Witnesses report that the lights often appear in the same locations over multiple nights, suggesting a repeated pattern or ritual. Some interpret these lights as guides or warnings from the Rivera-esque spirits, while others believe they may be manifestations of energy left behind by those who vanished long ago. Approaching the lights often results in them fading or disappearing entirely, leaving the observer questioning whether they were ever truly there. Disappearances along the banks of Wolf Creek River are a consistent part of its haunted reputation. Visitors walking or camping near the water have reported friends or family members vanishing without explanation, leaving tents, belongings, and even personal vehicles untouched. In some cases, the missing person reappears hours later, disoriented and unable to recall what happened. In others, they're never seen again. Witnesses often recall hearing whispers calling their names just before someone disappears, a phenomenon that adds a chilling sense of intentionality to the river's supernatural activity. The pattern of vanishings has reinforced the idea that the river is alive with spirits, claiming or guiding those who tread too close to its banks. Auditory experiences are prevalent in addition to visual phenomena. Travelers report faint whispering carried by the wind, often voices calling their own names or offering cryptic warnings. Some describe the sound of footsteps or splashing from areas of the river where no one is present, as if unseen beings move through the water in ways that mimic human activity. These sounds often accompany sightings of figures or lights, creating a multi-sensory experience that is difficult to explain. The combination of visual, auditory, and sometimes tactile phenomena, such as sudden chills or the feeling of being watched, has left many visitors convinced that the river harbors forces beyond the natural world. The river's connection to Native American legends is deeply woven into these experiences. Tribes historically regarded Wolf Creek River as sacred, warning that spirits guarded its waters and that disrespect or trespassing could invoke misfortune. Ceremonies and offerings were performed along the banks to honor the river's power, a practice that has left traces in the cultural memory of the area. Some believe that the modern hauntings are echoes of these ancient rituals, or that the spirits still linger to enforce boundaries, guide lost travelers, or protect the river from intrusion. The repeated sightings and reinforce the sense that the river is more than a natural landmark. It is a spiritual entity with its own will and presence. Paranormal investigators have attempted to capture evidence of the haunting along Wolf Creek River. Cameras occasionally reveal blurred figures moving across the water or standing at the river's edge, while night vision devices sometimes record glowing lights drifting upriver. Audio equipment frequently picks up low whispers or indistinct voices, often too faint to discern clearly, but enough to confirm that something unusual is occurring. Even those who approach with skepticism often leave unsettled, having felt sudden cold spots, unexplainable pressure, or fleeting shadows. The experiences are consistent, suggesting a pattern of supernatural activity tied to the river itself. Despite its reputation, the Wolf Creek River remains a destination for adventurers. Locals, however, advise caution, especially at night or during foggy conditions. The legends of ghostly figures, moving lights, and unexplained disappearances are passed down in whispered warnings, ensuring that the Rivera's dark history continues to influence those who venture near. The Wolf Creek River is more than a waterway. It is a living corridor of memory, legend, and spectral presence. The waiting figures, lights moving upriver, and vanishings along the banks all point to a river that remembers and perhaps interacts with the living in ways that cannot be fully understood. For those who approach after dark, every ripple, shadow, and whisper carries the weight of centuries, making Wolf Creek River a place where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural are impossibly thin. The Leaf Bayou winds quietly through southeast Mississippi, cutting a path through dense forests, cypress swamps, and low-lying farmland. By day, the bayou appears tranquil, its dark, slow-moving waters reflecting the thick canopy of trees that line its banks. Birds call from hidden perches, and the soft rustle of leaves carries across the surface. Fishermen occasionally drift along its calm stretches, and the air is heavy with the scent of wet earth and river moss. Over the decades, locals have whispered of strange and unexplainable occurrences. Sudden whirlpools appearing without cause, shadowy figures walking along the banks, and eerie laughter that seems to echo across the water long after sunset. The bayou is a place where the ordinary meets the inexplicable, and where visitors often leave with a lasting sense of unease. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the sudden appearance of whirlpools. Even on the calmest days, locals have seen swirling vortices form in the water without warning. These whirlpools appear seemingly at random, twisting the surface of the bayou and creating eddies that vanish just as quickly as they arise. Fishermen have recounted moments when their boats were unexpectedly caught in these swirling currents, rocking violently before the water returned to its placid state. One man told of drifting along the Leaf Bayou on a quiet morning when a whirlpool formed beneath his boat. He felt the pull of the water around him, but when he looked, the bayou was calm and undisturbed just a few feet away. Such phenomena leave a lingering fear that the waters are not entirely natural, that they are governed by unseen forces with the power to claim the unwary. Phantom figures walking along the banks are another common feature of the Leaf Bayou's mysterious reputation. Witnesses describe pale, indistinct shapes moving silently along the edges of the water, gliding through the mist as though untethered by gravity. These figures are often humanoid in appearance, but move in ways that seem unnatural, their steps soundless despite their presence. A young couple walking near the bank at dusk reported seeing two figures pacing along the shoreline. When they approached, the shapes vanished entirely, leaving only the gentle ripple of the water in their wake. Many locals believe these specters are remnants of lives lost to the bayou over the years of fishermen, travelers, or even those who drowned during floods abound of the water that claimed them. Eerie laughter is another hallmark of the bayou's haunting presence. On quiet nights, visitors report hearing faint giggles or muffled laughter drifting across the water, often rising from areas where no one is visible. Sometimes the laughter seems to come from children. Other times it carries a darker, more unsettling tone, echoing through the trees and the thick fog that frequently settles over the bayou. One fisherman recounted sitting alone in his small boat when he heard soft laughter rising from the bank. The sound seemed to circle him, echoing off the water and growing louder before abruptly stopping. When he looked toward the source, there was no one, only the still water reflecting the pale moonlight. Such sounds leave a lasting impression, creating a sense that the bayou itself is alive with unseen observers. Visitors also report a combination of visual, auditory, and physical sensations. Shadows flit at the edges of vision, sudden chills sweep across the skin, and there is often a feeling of being watched. Sudden chills sweep across the skin, and there is often a feeling of being watched. There is often a feeling of being watched. Some describe a subtle tugging at their clothes or sensation of pressure along their shoulders, as though invisible hands are present, guiding or warning them. A sensation of pressure along their shoulders, as though invisible hands are present, guiding or warning them. Phantom figures and laughter produce a deeply immersive and unsettling atmosphere that can linger long after leaving the bayou. Phantom figures and laughter produce a deeply immersive and unsettling atmosphere that can linger long after leaving the bayou. Phantom figures and laughter produce a deeply immersive and unsettling atmosphere that can linger long after leaving the bayou. Paranormal investigators have explored the Leaf Bayou to document its unusual activity. Audio recordings capture distant, unexplained laughter, faint whispers, and the sound of footsteps along deserted banks. Thermal imaging reveals sudden pockets of cold air rising from the water, often corresponding with locations where figures have been reported. Long exposure photography occasionally captures blurred shapes floating above the surface or along the shoreline. Experts suggest that the bayou's history of drowning incidents, coupled with the emotional energy tied to tragic events, has left residual spiritual impressions that manifest as visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena for those nearby. Local lore has reinforced the Leaf Bayou's eerie reputation. Residents warn visitors to be cautious, particularly at night or during heavy fog. Noting that the bayou is more than a body of water, it is a place steeped in sorrow, mystery, and lingering spirits. Stories of whirlpools, phantom figures, and haunting laughter are passed down across generations, shaping a collective memory that makes the bayou both feared and respected. Despite its unsettling reputation, the Leaf Bayou continues to attract fishermen, hikers, thrill-seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts. Many leave with vivid accounts of sudden whirlpools forming beneath them, ghostly figures walking silently along the banks, and laughter that echoes long after the source has vanished. The Leaf Bayou is more than a winding waterway in southeast Mississippi. It is a place where history, tragedy, and the unexplained converge, where the currents and shadows carry stories of the past, and where those who venture near the water are reminded that some rivers are haunted not just by memory, but by the enduring presence of the unseen. Those who venture near the water are reminded that some secrets are better left unspoken. The Sunflower Bayou in the Delta region winds silently through lowlands dotted with cypress trees and thick vegetation, its dark waters reflecting the sky and the silhouettes of surrounding forest. By day, it seems peaceful, a place where fishermen cast lines and herons glide over the surface. But as night falls, the bayou takes on a far more ominous character. Of lost travelers who never returned, of spectral apparitions that vanish when approached, and of strange lights that float above the water, casting an otherworldly glow in the fog that often settles over the river. Over generations, the Sunflower Bayou has become notorious for its mysterious and chilling phenomena, drawing both curious visitors and those seeking to confront its dark reputation. One of the most commonly reported occurrences is the appearance of ghostly lights hovering above the water. Witnesses describe faint glows that drift along the bayou, sometimes following the current, and other times hovering motionless above the surface. The lights are said to flicker in colors not commonly seen in nature: pale blue, soft white, or occasionally an unsettling reddish hue. Campers and boaters recount feeling an inexplicable pull toward these lights, a compulsion that vanishes the instant they attempt to focus on them directly. Local lore suggests these lights are manifestations of the spirits of travelers lost to the bayou over decades, or even centuries, their energy lingering just above the water in spectral form. Witnesses often describe seeing human figures walking along the banks or wading in the shallows, only to vanish mid-step when approached. Some appear as travelers from long ago, wearing period clothing or carrying tools and belongings, while others are more ethereal and featureless, just dark shapes outlined against the water or the fog. Observers report a lingering sense of unease, as if the figures have left an indelible mark on the landscape. Locals claim that these are the souls of those who fell victim to the bayou's treacherous currents or became lost in its dense marshes, trapped between the world of the living and the dead. Auditory phenomena add to the haunting of the Sunflower Bayou. On foggy nights, visitors frequently report hearing screams and cries echoing from the depths of the water. These sounds are described as both human and distorted, rising in pitch and then fading as though carried away by the mist. Some say the screams come in waves, punctuated by the sound of splashing, as if Summonia or some thing is struggling in the water. Whispered names and pleas for help often accompany these screams, creating a chilling tapestry of sound that seems impossible to locate. Campers along the bayou recount waking in the dead of night to hear these sounds, their origin invisible but undeniably present. Paranormal investigators drawn to the Sunflower Bayou have documented multiple unusual occurrences consistent with local accounts. EMF readings often spike along the water's edge where lights and apparitions are reported. Thermal imaging cameras detect sudden cold pockets in the fog, sometimes in shapes suggestive of human forms. Audio recordings capture faint splashes, distorted cries, and whispered words that appear to come from multiple directions simultaneously. One investigator described drifting along the bayou in a small canoe when a pale light appeared over the water. Moments later, a figure emerged along the bank, walking slowly before fading away mid-step. Playback of recordings confirmed muffled screams and water disturbances with no identifiable source. Local legend helps explain the bayou's persistent phenomena. The Sunflower Bayou has claimed countless lives over the centuries, from lost travelers and fishermen to explorers unfamiliar with the treacherous terrain. The misty fog that often blankets the area at night is said to trap spirits, giving them form and allowing them to replay moments of fear and tragedy. The floating lights may represent the lingering energy of those lost, guiding, warning, or even luring the living. Many locals advise travelers to avoid the bayou after dark, believing that the spirits are strongest then, and that those who linger too long risk being drawn into the water themselves. Visitors often report strong emotional and physical reactions when experiencing the bayou's hauntings. Many describe chills, goosebumps, and a feeling of heaviness that presses against the chest. Some feel as though invisible eyes are tracking their movements, or that unseen hands brush against them in the fog. The combination of apparitions, lights, and cries creates an environment of constant tension, compelling even the bravest to leave quickly. Those who linger sometimes report recurring dreams or visions of the lost, suggesting that the Baiwa's influence extends beyond mere sight and sound. Even during daylight, subtle signs of haunting persist along the Sunflower Bayou. Ripples sometimes appear on the still water with no discernible cause. Shadows flicker unnaturally among the cypress roots. Ripples sometimes appear on the still water with no discernible cause. Shadows flicker unnaturally among the cypress roots, and faint lights have been glimpsed during early morning fog. Ripples sometimes appear on the still water with no discernible cause. Shadows flicker unnaturally among the cypress roots, and faint lights have been glimpsed during early morning fog. These small details hint at the persistent presence of as spectral inhabitants. Ripples sometimes appear on the still water with no discernible cause. Shadows flicker unnaturally among the cypress roots, and faint lights have been glimpsed during early morning fog. These small details hint at the persistent presence of as spectral inhabitants, reminding visitors that the Rivera's dark energy does not disappear when the sun rises. The Sunflower Bayou is more than a waterway. It is a living record of loss, tragedy, and lingering spirits. Floating lights above the water, apparitions vanishing mid-step, and screams echoing through fog combine to create an environment charged with supernatural tension. Those who venture near its banks at night confront a place where the past and present intersect, where the lost remain ever present, and where the waters themselves seem to carry memory and sorrow. For those who leave, the haunting lingers, a chilling reminder that some rivers are never just reversa. They are gateways to the restless, to the stories that refuse to be forgotten. The Bogue Homer River in Jackson County winds through thick forests, marshes, and low-lying wetlands, its dark waters reflecting the dense canopy above. By day, it is a quiet, unassuming river, a place where fishermen cast lines and wildlife thrives along the banks. But beneath this calm surface lies a dark history marked by tragedy. For decades, the Bogue Homer has been notorious for sudden storms and treacherous currents that have claimed lives without warning. Over time, visitors began to report strange occurrences tied to these tragedias. Boats drifting without occupants, shadowy figures along the banks, and currents moving against the natural flow of the Rivera, creating a reputation for the river as a place where the natural and supernatural intersect. Boaters navigating the Bogue Homer River often speak of moments when their vessels seem to move with a mind of their own. Calm stretches of water can become unpredictable without warning, and currents sometimes push boats in directions opposite to the flow. Many witnesses describe boats that drift silently, with no one at the helm, floating past them or appearing further downriver than they should have traveled. Attempts to approach these vessels often prove futile. They vanish as mysteriously as they appeared. These drifting boats are sometimes seen in areas where storms previously caused drownings, leading some to believe they are manifestations of spirits unable to leave the river, forever replaying the events that claimed them. Shadowy figures are a recurring phenomenon along the riverbanks. These figures are often humanoid in shape but lack distinct features, giving them a ghostly, intangible quality. Some appear to pace along the banks as though retracing steps from long ago, while others stand motionless, watching the river flow. The presence of these shadows creates a sense of being observed, a feeling that is intensified when combined with other phenomena, such as drifting boats or sudden changes in the Rivera's current. Witnesses often report an unnerving chill accompanying these figures, as if the air itself is charged with the energy of the past. The river itself seems to behave in ways that defy natural explanation. Many have witnessed water moving against its normal flow, rippling in strange patterns or surging in isolated sections, even when the rest of the river is calm. These unnatural currents often appear near locations associated with drownings or disappearances, leading to speculation that the river retains a memory of the tragedies that occurred there. Some boaters report feeling their vessels tugged or guided by unseen hands. In these reverse currents, as though the river is actively influencing their movement, combined with drifting boats and shadowy figures, these anomalies create an environment that is both eerie and unpredictable. making the Bogue Homer River a place to be approached with caution and respect. Auditory phenomena add another layer of unease to the Rivera's reputation. Visitors have reported hearing faint cries, whispers, or even the sound of footsteps over water and marshland. These sounds often seem to come from empty areas or from the direction of the drifting boats and shadowy figures. Some witnesses claim that the voices call their names or issue subtle warnings to leave the area, reinforcing the impression that the river itself is alive with restless spirits. The combination of sight, sound, and tactile sensations, the cold touch of mist, the pressure of unseen eyes, or the tug of invisible currents, creates an experience that is difficult to dismiss as coincidence or imagination. Local folklore surrounding the Bogue Homer River adds depth to these experiences. Native American legends speak of spirits inhabiting the waters, guiding or claiming those who show disrespect or wander alone at night. Early settlers recounted sudden storms, drowning accidents, and strange sightings along the riverbanks, adding to the Rivera's reputation as a dangerous, haunted place. These stories have been passed down through generations, preserving a collective awareness of the Rivera's power and its potential for both natural and supernatural danger. Some locals believe that the drifting boats are echoes of those lost in the river, while the shadowy figures are guardians or restless souls, tied eternally to the water that claimed them. Paranormal investigators have documented some of the unusual phenomena at the Bogue Homer River. Cameras sometimes capture faint, blurred shapes on the banks or in the water, while audio equipment records indistinct voices or the sound of footsteps over empty terrain. Temperature drops and misty anomalies have been reported in areas where drifted boats or shadowy figures appear. Even skeptics admit that the consistency of these sightings, combined with the Rivera's history of drownings and dangerous currents, suggests that the Bogue Homer River is more than a typical waterway. It is a place where past tragedies resonate in the present. Despite its ominous reputation, the Bogue Homer River remains in use. Locals continue to fish, boat, and traverse its waters, though most avoid it during storms or at night. Stories of drifting boats, shadowy figures, and unnatural currents are shared as warnings, a way of preserving respect for a river that is both beautiful and treacherous. Visitors are advised never to approach alone and to remain vigilant, as the Rivera's history and supernatural presence continue to influence those who enter its domain. The Bogue Homer River is more than a river. It is a living testament to centuries of tragedy and mystery. Boats that drift without occupants, shadowy figures along the banks, and currents that defy nature all serve as reminders that the river holds memories and spirits that refuse to rest. For those who venture near its waters, every ripple, shadow, and whisper carries away the past, transforming the simple act of crossing or exploring the river into a haunting encounter with the unknown. The Noxubee River flows quietly through eastern Mississippi, winding its way through dense forests, low-lying wetlands, and small towns that cling to its banks. By day, the river appears calm and inviting, its dark waters reflecting the trees and the sky above. Herons stalk the shallows, fish break the surface in quiet ripples, and the occasional canoe glides along the gentle current. Yet beneath this peaceful exterior lies a history marked by tragedy. Centuries ago, entire families perished in sudden floods, their bodies often swept away by the river and never recovered. Over time, these events have given the Noxubee a reputation among locals as a place haunted by the spirits of those lost, where the past continues to echo through mist and water. Visitors often recount unsettling encounters that suggest the river carries with it more than memory. It carries lingering presences that are restless, watchful, and occasionally visible to the living. One of the most frequently reported phenomena along the Noxubee River involves ghostly children running through the fog. Visitors describe seeing small figures darting across the riverbanks in the early morning or late evening, appearing and vanishing as quickly as they emerge. Some say the children seem to be playing, their laughter faint and distant, echoing eerily across the water. Others report a more somber tone, with little figures appearing sad or lost, running in circles before fading into the thick mist. A fisherman recalled spotting a young girl along the shore during a morning fog. As he approached to get a closer look, she vanished entirely, leaving only a faint imprint in the dew-soaked grass. These sightings are often interpreted as the spirits of children from families who drowned centuries ago, bound to the river that claimed their lives. Whispers calling names are another common phenomenon. Those walking along the banks of the Naksubi report hearing faint voices, sometimes calling out their own names or the names of loved ones. The voices are often distant, almost impossible to localize, and seem to come from the fog itself. A woman hiking alone at dusk described hearing her name called repeatedly, soft and urgent, though no one was visible around her. The experience left her unnerved, and she hurried back toward the town, convinced that the river had drawn her attention for a reason she could not understand. These auditory experiences contribute to the river's eerie atmosphere, reinforcing the sense that the Naksubi is not merely a waterway, but a living repository of memory, tragedy, and presence. Boats floating empty at night are yet another unsettling feature of the river. Locals have reported canoes, rowboats, and even larger vessels drifting silently along the water without any crew aboard. One night, a couple fishing from the bank noticed a small boat moving against the current. They paddled toward it, curious and cautious, only to find the vessel completely empty, as if the river itself had set it in motion. On some occasions, the boats appear to follow observers along the water's edge, then vanish into fog, leaving no trace behind. These phenomena are often seen as residual echoes of families who perish in the river, their routines and movements imprinted into the water itself. Visitors also report a combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences along the Naksubi River. Shadows flit along the periphery of vision. Sudden chills sweep the air even on warm evenings. And the feeling of being watched is pervasive. Some describe fleeting touches or the sensation of hands brushing against them when no one is present. These sensations, combined with the visual and auditory phenomena, create a deeply immersive environment that can leave visitors both fascinated and unsettled. Paranormal investigators have explored the Naksubi River to document these occurrences. Audio recordings capture whispers, faint cries, and distant laughter that cannot be attributed to human activity. Thermal imaging reveals sudden cold spots rising from the water, often aligning with areas where ghostly figures have been reported. Experts theorize that the tragic deaths of families in the river, combined with the lingering emotional energy of these events, may have created residual spiritual impressions that continue to manifest for those who venture near the river. Experts theorize that the tragic deaths of families in the river, combined with the lingering emotional energy of these events, may have created residual spiritual impressions that continue to manifest for those who venture near the river. Local lore has preserved the river's haunting for generations. Residents warn visitors to be cautious, particularly at night or when fog covers the water, sharing stories of children running through mist, boats moving on their own, and whispers calling names. These tales serve both as warnings and as a testament to the river's enduring power over memory and presence. Despite its unsettling reputation, the Naksubi River continues to attract fishermen, hikers, and paranormal enthusiasts seeking to experience its mysteries firsthand. Many leave with vivid recollections of ghostly children, boats floating empty on silent waters, and whispers that linger long after the river has faded from sight. The Naksubi River is more than a waterway through eastern Mississippi. It is a place where tragedy, memory, and the unexplained converge. A river where centuries-old spirits continue to move, speak, and linger, reminding all who venture near that some waters hold the past tightly, and some presences never truly depart. The Pascagoula Bayou in southern Mississippi flows quietly through dense forests and marshlands, its dark waters reflecting cypress trees and the hanging Spanish moss that line its banks. By day, the river appears calm and unassuming, a haven for fishermen, kayakers, and wildlife. But by night, it transforms into a place steeped in legend and mystery. Locals whisper the spirits of sailors and travelers who vanished along its waters, of lights rising inexplicably from the surface, and of campers who disappeared without a trace. Many believe the Pascagoula Bayou is alive with the energy of the lost, a living repository of tragedy. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the appearance of strange lights rising from the water. Witnesses describe pale glows or flickering orbs that seem to emerge in the river itself, hovering above the surface before drifting toward the banks or disappearing into the night sky. These lights move unpredictably, sometimes lingering for minutes, and at other times vanishing in an instant. Campers and fishermen have reported a subtle, almost magnetic pull toward the lights, an urge to follow them that vanishes the moment they focus on a river directly. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the appearance of strange lights rising from the water. Some speculate that these lights are manifestations of the souls of sailors who drowned or lost along the bayou, lingering as spectral beacons that mark where tragedy struck. Apparitions are another chilling feature of the Pascagoula Bayou. Visitors often report seeing figures along the water's edge, appearing suddenly and vanishing without warning. Many of these are described as sailors, dressed in period clothing, their forms wet and disheveled, as if they had just emerged from the river. Observers recall seeing these figures pause at the water's edge, looking out over the river as though searching for something, before dissolving into the night. Some apparitions appear to move with purpose, retracing the routes they once traveled, while others seem unaware of the living, absorbed in the endless repetition of their past lives endlessly. Locals believe that these spirits remain tethered to the bayou, unable to leave the waters that claimed them and compelled to replay fragments of their past lives endlessly. Auditory phenomena add a further layer of unease. Visitors frequently report hearing faint splashes or the creaking of boat timbers along the otherwise still waters. Whispered voices, sometimes calling out names or issuing warnings, often accompany these sounds, carried on the river breeze. On foggy nights, these auditory experiences are amplified, echoing across the water and creating the impression of a world alive with unseen presence. Campers have described waking to find the sounds of footsteps near their tents, only to discover the banks empty. Investigators equipped with audio devices have captured recordings of muffled cries, distant laughter, and water disturbances with no discernible source, suggesting that the Pascagoula Bayou maintains a lingering, active energy. Disappearances along the bayou have fueled its reputation as a dangerous and haunted place. Locals recount tales of campers and travelers vanishing after dark, sometimes leaving behind only personal belongings or disturbed campsites. Witnesses describe seeing figures near the water moments before the disappearances, and others report faint lights or ripples on the surface that cannot be explained. The legend of the bayou is filled with warnings. Those who linger too long at night risk being drawn into its spectral grip, and many believe that the river itself claims anyone who ignores its power. Paranormal investigators have documented various anomalies that correspond to local reports. EMF readings often spike near areas where lights are reported, and thermal cameras detect sudden drops in temperature along the banks. Some investigators have captured faint heat signatures in the water that correspond with sightings of sailor apparitions. Audio recordings frequently contain overlapping layers of faint splashing, whispering, and movement that have no visible source. One investigator described paddling along the river at midnight when a pale light emerged from the water. A figure appeared near the bank, seemingly stepping out of the river, only to vanish in a blink. Playback of the recordings confirmed soft cries and water disturbances that had no physical explanation. Even during daylight hours, subtle signs of the haunting persist. Shadows in the trees occasionally shift unnaturally, and ripples appear on calm water with no breeze or current. Small lights have been glimpsed along the banks in morning fog. And some visitors feel an invisible presence watching from the reeds. These daytime phenomena suggest that the spirits and energy of the Pascagoula Bayou are never dormant. Merely quieter, waiting for darkness and fog to make themselves fully known. Visitors often describe strong physical and emotional reactions when encountering the bayou's supernatural activity. Many experience chills, goosebumps, a tightening in the chest, or a sense of overwhelming dread. The feeling of being watched is pervasive, and some report being compelled to retreat before even seeing an apparition. Those who spend time near the bayou report lingering unease that follows them long after they leave, sometimes manifesting as dreams, flashes of light, or auditory memories of the river. The Pascagoula Bayou is more than a river. It is a place alive with memory, tragedy, and the presence of the lost. Lights rising from the water, ghostly sailors, and vanishing campers combine to create an environment charged with supernatural energy. Those who venture along its banks at night confront a space where the boundary between the living and the dead feels thin, where the past remains vividly alive, and where the river itself seems to carry the spirits of those it has claimed. For those who leave the bayou behind, the experience lingers a chilling reminder that some waters never release the souls trapped within them. The Big Black Bayou in central Mississippi winds through dense forests, lowlands, and swampy terrain. Its waters dark and still by day, but full of danger and mystery after dusk. The bayou has long been infamous for sudden drownings and unexplained disappearances, drawing a mixture of fear and fascination from locals and travelers alike. Centuries of history have left an indelible mark on the water, and over time, stories of ghostly activity have become intertwined with its reputation. Visitors report ghostly silhouettes moving along the foggy banks, voices crying for help from the darkness, boats drifting or moving of their own accord. Witnesses often describe the eerie sight of shadowy figures appearing on fog-laden nights. These silhouettes are rarely distinct, appearing as dark, humanoid shapes that glide along the banks or stand partially submerged in the water. Some are seen pacing slowly, as if searching for something or retracing steps in the past, while others remain motionless, staring into the dark river. Observers frequently report a sense of recognition, as if the figures are echoes of people who once lived along the bayou or travelers who vanished long ago. Attempts to approach these silhouettes usually result in them vanishing instantly, leaving only an empty stretch of fog-drenched bank and a lingering chill in the air. Boats on the Big Black Bayou are often part of the strange phenomena that have given the river its haunted reputation. Many visitors recount moments when vessels drift without occupants, appearing suddenly or moving in ways that defy the natural current. Canoes, small fishing boats, and even larger crafts are said to move along the river with a quiet, eerie autonomy, turning, pausing, or reversing direction without explanation. Sometimes these drifting boats are seen near areas where drownings or disappearances have occurred, leading witnesses to speculate that the river preserves traces of tragedy, manifesting them in physical form. Efforts to board or intercept these boats frequently fail, as if an invisible hand guides them, keeping the living at bay. Auditory phenomena further heighten the sense of unease along the bayou. Visitors have reported faint cries for help, sometimes accompanied by whispers or fragmented phrases that seem almost intelligible. These voices often appear to come from the direction of the drifting boats or from the fog-covered banks, moving and fading unpredictably. Some witnesses insist the voices call their names, creating an unnerving sense of personal attention from the unseen. The combination of auditory and visual experiences of ghostly silhouettes, moving boats, and pleading voice Caesar produces a compelling impression of a place where the past persists, actively influencing the present. The bayou itself seems to exhibit behaviors that defy natural explanation. Currents can shift suddenly, and water in certain sections moves against a natural flow, creating an unnatural resistance to navigation. Ripples sometimes appear in isolated patches of otherwise still water, as though disturbed by invisible activity beneath the surface. These anomalies often coincide with sightings of ghostly figures or drifting boats, reinforcing the sense that the river is alive with residual energy from past tragedies. Boaters frequently describe their vessels as feeling unusually heavy or guided by unseen forces when passing through these areas, further cementing the idea of a conscious presence in the bayou. History provides context for the Big Black Bayou's haunted reputation. Native American tribes regarded the river as sacred, warning that spirits guarded its waters and that those who traveled without respect risked harm. Early settlers and travelers recounted sudden storms, drownings, and mysterious disappearances. attributing them to supernatural causes. Over generations, these stories are combined with eyewitness accounts of ghostly silhouettes, drifting boats, and disembodied voices to create a body of folklore that continues to influence perceptions of the river. Local residents often pass down warnings to avoid venturing near the bayou alone after dark, reinforcing the tradition of respect and caution. Paranormal investigators have sought to document the strange occurrences along the Big Black Bayou. Cameras have captured fleeting shadows on the banks or misty figures moving near the water, while audio recordings occasionally reveal faint cries, whispering, or calls that seem to originate from nowhere. Some investigators report sudden temperature drops, strange fog formations, or inexplicable shifts in water currents during their observations. Even skeptics frequently leave unsettled, citing experiences of unseen pressure, fleeting touches, or the uncanny behavior of boats in water, all reinforcing the river's reputation as a site of genuine paranormal activity. Despite its ominous reputation, the Big Black Bayou remains a destination for fishermen, adventurers, and curious travelers. Most locals advise avoiding the river after dark or traveling in groups, heeding the stories of ghostly silhouettes, disappearing boats, and voices calling for help. The tales passed down through generations serve as a cautionary record of a river that has claimed countless lives and continues to assert its presence in ways both subtle and terrifying. The Big Black Bayou is more than a river. It is a repository of memory, tragedy, and lingering spirits. Ghostly figures on foggy nights, drifting boats, and cries from the darkness are reminders that the river carries more than water. It carries the weight of centuries of lives lost, and the presence of those who have not moved on. For those who approach its banks after dark, every ripple, shadow, and whisper is a reminder that the Big Black Bayou is a place where the past and present converge, and where the boundary between the natural and supernatural is impossibly thin. Wolf Bay stretches along Mississippi's Gulf Coast, a dark and winding inlet surrounded by marshes, salt flats, and stretches of dense woodland. By day, the bay is deceptively calm, its waters reflecting the sky and the occasional gull or heron gliding overhead. Fishermen navigate its shallow channels, casting nets and lines into quiet water, and the scent of salt and wet earth hangs in the air. Yet beneath this peaceful surface lies a history marked by tragedy and mystery. Over the decades, numerous fishermen have vanished during sudden storms, leaving no trace behind. Locals whisper that the bay is haunted, that those lost to the waters linger still, and that Wolf Bay holds a presence both watchful and restless. Visitors often describe seeing lights bobbing on the water at night. These lights appear suddenly, small and flickering, moving independently of the current or wind. Sometimes they seem like lanterns carried by unseen hands, dancing above the waves. A local boat captain recounted a night when he was returning to shore during a calm evening. Out of nowhere, several small lights appeared on the water ahead, moving in erratic patterns as if Gedingda or were ning to him. As he approached, the lights disappeared completely, leaving only the dark expanse of water and the sound of gentle waves. Witnesses often interpret these lights as manifestations of the spirits of fishermen lost to Wolf Bay, replaying moments of their last journeys, or attempting to signal the living to remain cautious. Shadowy figures near the shore are another hallmark of Wolf Bay's haunting. People walking along the coastline at dusk or in early morning misreport seeing silhouettes that resemble men in fishing attire, standing motionless on the sand or among the marsh grasses. These figures vanish when approached, leaving no footprints or disturbance in surrounding vegetation. One visitor recalled walking along the bay during a foggy evening when he noticed a man standing just beyond a cluster of reeds. He called out, but the figure did not respond and in a blink disappeared into the mist, leaving an uneasy silence behind. The sensation of being watched from the depths is another phenomenon frequently reported. Visitors describe the feeling of unseen eyes tracking their movements across the water, or an awareness that something lies beneath the surface, observing their every step. Anglers have recounted moments when the hairs on their necks stood on end, or when the air seemed to thicken, carry an oppressive weight that could not be explained by weather alone. This feeling often intensifies at night or during foggy conditions, creating a deeply unsettling atmosphere in which the ordinary rules of perception seem suspended. Auditory experiences also contribute to Wolf Bay's eerie reputation. Some visitors report hearing the faint sound of oars scraping the water, nets being hauled, or voices calling across the waves, even when no boats are present. Others describe sudden splashes or the creak of wood as though a vessel were nearby, only to find the waters empty. These sounds, often coupled with the visual phenomena, reinforce the impression that the bay is inhabited by lingering spirits, replaying echoes of their lives in the moments before tragedy claimed them. Paranormal investigators have explored Wolf Bay to document these occurrences. Audio recordings have captured faint voices, distant splashes, and creaks consistent with the presence of unseen vessels. Thermal imaging has revealed pockets of sudden cold above the water, often coinciding with locations where lights or shadowy figures were observed. Long-exposure photography has occasionally captured blurred forms hovering just above the surface or standing along the shoreline. Experts suggest that the concentrated energy from those lost in sudden storms may have left residual impressions that manifest as visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena for those present along the bay. Local lore reinforces the haunting of Wolf Bay. Residents warn travelers to be cautious, particularly during foggy nights or when the water is calm but the air feels heavy. Stories of lights bobbing on the waves, shadowy figures along the shore, and the sense of being watched are shared freely, passed down through generations. Many insist that the bay is a place where the boundary between the living and the lost is thin, where curiosity can bring one dangerously close to the unknown. Despite its reputation, Wolf Bay continues to draw fishermen, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts seeking to witness its mysteries firsthand. Many leave with vivid memories of lights dancing on the water, shadowy figures vanishing into the fog, and the unnerving sensation of unseen eyes observing from the depths. Wolf Bay is more than a coastal inlet in Mississippi. It is a living monument to lives claimed by sudden storms, a place where tragedy, mystery, and lingering spirits converge, and where those who venture near are reminded that some waters carry more than fish. They carry the echoes of the lost, ever watchful and never gone. Mississippi's rivers are more than Lifelineza. They are carriers of mystery, tragedy, and vanished souls. Across these 25 haunted rivers, countless people have disappeared, leaving behind only whispers, shadows, and chilling legends.